And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, December 13th, and we know on Friday the 13th, we're going to get some sort of weird nonsense. It has to happen. That's what Friday the 13th is for. Maybe we should make a lineup of just Jasons, but at the same time, I'm not even sure if there is one. We'll keep our eye on that. I'm Josh Engleman, by the way, joined by DK, brought to you by ourselves. Sign up at Stokastic by clicking the link in the description. Get a month of whichever sport you'd like for free. $0. As long as you sign up through one of the links of our affiliates. We have an 8-game slate today if you play on FanDuel, a 6-game slate if you play on DraftKings. And honestly, today, they shouldn't have dropped those 2 games. Why? This one's, if they're at 10 and 10:30, sure, maybe. We really need to drop those 2? Ugh.
Yeah, I totally agree, because like you have the game at 8 Central. It's like the late slate is 30 minutes after. So it's like it should have just been included in the main slate. I don't get it.
Yeah. I get it when there's like a sizable gap or it's like 8 o'clock and then 10 o'clock. Sure. This didn't need to become 6. What's the difference here? Just make it 8. Yeah. It's not like the people that are playing the early slate are using that money to get into the late slate. That's not getting paid out nearly fast enough to use it. So what's the point? For this one, I don't love it. There's not a ton of good basketball on this slate. Clippers Denver is solid, I guess, but Indy Philly, I mean, not the way Indy's playing. At least Philly's at full strength. Washington Cleveland is a bloodbath. Charlotte and Cleveland and Chicago are terrible. The Lakers don't have Braun. That's a rough one against Minnesota. Brooklyn Memphis should be a bloodbath. Phoenix Utah is not exactly appealing. San Antonio and Portland, at least we get to watch Wemby. Kind of gross, but that doesn't mean anything for DFS. We're all degenerates around this place. We don't care how bad the games are. We're playing one way or the other. How's your week been, man?
Yeah, it's been going pretty good. I'm glad it's Friday. This slate there's still a good amount of news they're waiting for. So yeah. Even though they cut out 2 games, should be an interesting slate for late swaps. We'll kind of talk about that. But yeah, not the best teams on it, but still money to be made. So I'll still be playing.
Absolutely. All right, we'll get another injury report in about a half hour, just in case it has any updates. But for now, it's time to talk a little basketball. And we're starting with, I don't know, one of the more disappointing teams in the league up against one of the more disappointing teams in the league. Indiana Pacers, 6.5-point dogs in Philadelphia, 228 total. For the Pacers, doubtful tag on Tristan Newton. That should matter nothing. Aaron Nesmith still out. They're getting all their guys back, but apparently they're also trading for Thomas Bryant. I tweeted out earlier, I'm afraid for his Achilles because it hasn't been a great year for backup centers for the Pacers and their Achilles tendon. So do something good for yourself, Thomas Bryant. Don't think he's going to be around today. So not something that matters right now. Not much matters from the Indiana Pacers right now. 12% ownership to Andrew Nembhard on DraftKings. He's 4,300 point guard, shooting guard eligible. Next highest guy is 6% to TJ McConnell. Nembhard did get to 10% on FanDuel. Everybody else is below that. I kind of figured something would look okay here for the Pacers, but they've really just stabilized this rotation. There's not too much variability in their price tags any longer. I don't really have much here. I do agree that Nembhard is your best option. I never mind like rolling the dice on McConnell, especially now that his minutes have crept up by an extra minute or 2 recently. But it's not like it's an exciting play for today. I don't have a single priority from the Pacers, and I don't have any of their best 4 players.
Yeah, the top guy is a little bit hard to prioritize. Nembhard, I think, is the easiest guy to get to. He's getting the most ownership, 4.3K. Previously he was only playing the first half. We saw him play a little bit in the second half there against Chicago. And then finally we saw him play like normal minutes, 31 minutes. So, Nembhard, not the best point per minute player, but, with him back to normal minutes of 4.3K, it does make him look like a pretty good value option. Miles Turner did not close in their most recent game against Charlotte, only played 21 minutes. However, it was kind of just a matchup thing. Charlotte went small ball, so Turner didn't close. Both teams went small. The Pacers, they don't really have a backup big. I mean, they signed Thomas Bryant. Again, don't think he's going to be available. So I could see, Turner playing a little bit more here to match up against Embiid just because, again, they don't really have any size behind him. The issue is just the price point. Like Turner is at 7K, and he's only center eligible. But I would not be surprised if he plays like 35 minutes in a game like this. You mentioned McConnell, 5.2K. I was a little bit worried about his minutes ticking down if Nembhard's ticked up, but McConnell still did play 26 minutes last game. However, again, that was a small ball closing lineup. So, this game, I don't think they're going to call it close small. So I still think that McConnell's minutes are a little bit more up in the air now with Nembhard back to full run. Obi Toppin's price has ticked up a bit. He has played 20 plus minutes in 4 of the last 5 games. I don't think it's necessary to go there. Halliburton and Siakam are getting no ownership. 8.6 for Hallie, 8.1 for Siakam. Again, not the best matchup, so kind of hard to get to them. Matherin's getting no ownership. So, I think Nembhard is definitely the guy that I like the best. Miles Turner, I think, will see a minutes increase if he can avoid foul trouble. Again, though, it's just the price point that makes it kind of hard to go there. So pretty unappealing team to start off the slate.
Yeah, it's so weird, too. Like, Turner's a fantasy point per minute guy. Halliburton's a 1.1 guy. Siakam's a fantasy point per minute guy. It's not like we're trying to fit these dudes in that, don't really produce all that much. They do. It's just there's either a lot of other options in their range and all of that gets pulled down, or it's just a situation like it is for Indy right now where these guys don't really miss any time. So everything is really stable. And we've got plenty of other spots on this slate that either have pending Q tags that could really throw a wrench into the slate, or just they already have guys out and that ownership is getting soaked up. That's not what we have for the Pacers right now. This is just who they are, save for Aaron Nesmith, but he's been out for so long that's long past it mattering. Meanwhile, the Sixers are sort of like the reverse of this because they actually have essentially everybody now, except for Caleb Martin, who's out for today. But it's a lot easier to fill Caleb Martin minutes than it is when Maxey or Embiid or Paul George are out. These guys aren't getting owned either. Now on FanDuel, the highest owned guy from anybody on the Sixers is 7% to Embiid. It's slightly different on DraftKings. No one's really getting any ownership save for Joel Embiid. And not only is he getting some ownership, he's getting a whole bunch of it. 9,500 center only, 44% owned on DraftKings. Oddly enough, that's the exact number that I got. I got a couple shares of Maxey, a couple shares of George, a couple shares of Kelly Oubre. I see Maxey and Halliburton relatively the same. Like, you want to take shots on those guys in GPPs. That is a more than reasonable thing to do. I just don't think they stand out. But let's start with the main event here for DraftKings. How do you feel about Embiid? Because we have Jokic at 12.5. We've got Anthony Davis with no LeBron James. So the pay-up options at center are alive and well today.
Yeah, that's the one thing, right, is the opportunity cost, because you do have a lot of other good centers, specifically Jokic. We'll see about Jamal Murray. We'll talk about that later. And then Anthony Davis out LeBron. But now you have a sub 10K Embiid going up against the Pacers, and he played 33 minutes last game. So, yeah, you're going to have to make some tough calls. I think Embiid right now definitely stands out as one of the better point per dollar spend ups in the slate. He's getting a lot of ownership. I agree. I think he should be, not scared of, the Pacers on the opposite side. So, Embiid stands out as a really good option. I do have a little bit of interest in Tyrese Maxey as a contrarian option. 8.8K right now, getting no ownership. So the assist numbers were crazy last game, playing alongside Embiid. It kind of makes sense, though, a little bit more of the pick and roll game there with Maxey and Embiid. So he had 85 passes made, 23 potential assists. He also played 42 minutes. The 76ers ran a really tight rotation last game, playing Maxey 42, Oubre 37. Again, Embiid played 33. Paul George played 34. So Maxey, I think, is a little bit interesting as a contrarian play. Paul George at 8K, I think, is reasonable as well. Kelly Oubre, 5.5K. I think it's a little bit tough to get to him. He's going to be the fourth option offensively. He should play a lot, but I don't think it's necessary to go to him. Yabusele started last game, but he did not start the second half. Now, I think he still will start, but Jared McCain, I think, would benefit there if they continue to limit Yabusele. So McCain, 6.2K. I don't think you can get to him unless you get confirmation that he's starting, but I do think he's going to play a bit more, and probably you'll see less minutes there for Yabusele. Caleb, or which Martin is it? Yeah, Caleb Martin is out, but I don't think that's going to do much. You'll probably see KJ Martin play a little bit. Don't think it's necessary to go to him either. So yeah, not a ton of ownership outside of Embiid. And I think, again, he stands out as a really good play. It's just tough because you have a lot of good center plays.
Yeah, it's Embiid and nothing. I mean, in this game, it's essentially Embiid and nothing else.
Yep.
a little tiny bit of Nemhard and nothing else really. Like I said, I got, a couple shares of Paul George and Maxey. I like those guys in tournaments. There's no reason this game can't be close. And, they play an extra minute or two and everything looks a little bit better. But like I said, we have a never ending supply of value coming up in some of these games. And in situations like Chicago, there's no telling what we end up getting out of it. Hell, all 4 centers for Portland today are questionable. Every one of them. Ayton, Klingon, Time Lord, and Dwop Reith are all questionable. So that should be a fun roll of the dice. Luckily, not on the DraftKings slate. Do you have anything else you want to add here for Indy and Philly?
No, I think ready to move on.
Cool. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards. Nothing more fun than that. 17-point underdogs on the road against Cleveland, 232 total. We're waiting on news here, so we still have to get a relatively big piece that could change up what Cleveland looks like. Evan Mobley is questionable for this one. Max Strus still out. Craig Porter is with the G League team. But on the Washington side, God, these guys are so injured. Patrick Baldwin's with the G League team. Sadiq Bey, obviously out for a while. Brogdon, shockingly injured. Keyshawn George, still out. Corey Kispert, still out. Kyle Kuzma, still out. And that is creating the most ownership for anybody on DraftKings for the Wizards. Obviously, Justin Champagnie, 25% owned. Only 7 on FanDuel, where he's $900 more expensive and doesn't have an MPE. Meanwhile, Bub Carrington is 20 on FanDuel, 8 on DraftKings because he's cheaper on FanDuel. But we're also getting 20% ownership to Joval, 15 to Jared Butler, 10 to Alex Sarr, basically 10 to Koulibaly, Carrington. I mean, Marvin Bagley's knocking on the door at 10. There's a bunch of ownership right now coming into the Washington Wizards. They're actually the 3rd most owned team and essentially tied for 2nd with the Clippers. Let's start with Champagnie. 75 or 4,500, small forward, power forward eligible. Been getting big run over these past couple days. Now, Sarr is back. I don't know how much that's going to matter. Do you see him as a good value play for today?
Yes, and as weird as this sounds, Patrick Baldwin being in the G League, I think actually is a pretty big upgrade to Champagnie. And the reason I say that is that I think he is blowout proof. If Baldwin is available, I was a little bit worried about him not closing a blowout. Last game, they got absolutely destroyed by Memphis. He started, and he was the one starter that closed alongside Bagley, Butler, Gill, and Davis. So I think that kind of raises his floor a little bit. Like, he's still a good value either way, but that makes me feel a little bit better about targeting him because I'm pretty sure he will be on the court if the game does get out of hand. So 4.5K for him makes him look like a pretty good play. I'm also curious. I want to see what the starting lineup is because against Cleveland, there's a chance, maybe they start JV and Sarr together. So we'll keep an eye on that. JV at 5.5, I think would be someone I would like a good amount if he starts. If he comes off the bench, it'll be a little bit tougher to get to him, but he is a really good point per minute player. The assist numbers are way up in JV last couple games. He was averaging like over 10 potential assists per game. Jared Butler coming in, or he's getting about 15% ownership. He's in the rotation, and he would also, again, close if the game does get out of hand. So Jared Butler, I think, is a solid value option. Not a ton of other ownership, though, coming in here. Carrington at 5.2K, doesn't really stand out to me. Marvin Bagley at 4K, I think is a decent value play. It's just tough because he's only center eligible, and we already talked about Embiid. We have Jokic and AD still to talk about. So, again, high opportunity cost there. Jordan Poole's getting no ownership. I mean, if you think Washington can keep it competitive, I think he's a little bit interesting for GPPs. With Kuzma and Brogdon off the court this year, he's about a 30% usage rate. So 25% assist percentage as well. 1.15 fantasy points per minute. So if Washington has any chance to keep it competitive, you'll probably need a pretty big game there from Jordan Poole. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else here. Like, I don't think it's necessary to go like Johnny Davis or Gill. Like, I think the value, the good value is Butler and Champagnie. And again, they are getting ownership.
Yeah, the Champagnie's the guy that I'm taking the quote-unquote stand on. He's in 32% of my stuff, but I have a lot of Washington, like 15 of Koulibaly, 10 of Carrington, 5 of Jordan Poole, 15 of Sarr, 15 of Joval, 15 of Jared Butler. So I'm getting a lot of these dudes, but nothing crazy. I'm not taking any major, like, I really need to get to the Washington Wizards here in this death matchup against the Cavs. But just because of how many dudes are out and how many minutes there are to go around here, and the fact that bunch of these not awesome dudes are probably going to pick up extra time in the fourth quarter just because I'm willing to click on them a little bit here. And I love the point that you made about Champagne with no Patrick Baldwin around. Yeah, I think he's kind of just going to probably play in the fourth quarter no matter what. I mean, in theory, I guess like anybody can close if it's competitive. Like they're probably just going with whatever they think their best five is. But if it's out of reach, I think he's just going to be out there anyway. Those minutes feel really safe.
Yep. Yeah. So Baldwin news again actually was pretty important. So
one question, you might have said this, so my apologies. Do you think they're going double bigs?
Yeah, I think they could. That's what I want to keep an eye on, because if they go double bigs, that probably means that Champagne is going to move to the bench, right? So they'll probably go Poole, Carrington, Koulibaly, Sarr, JV if that happens. So that's why I think the starting lineup is pretty important here. Yeah,
keep your eyes peeled for it, guys. You'll probably get it during Live Before Lock in and around 6:30. So make sure you're watching the show after this one, Eric and Bellman. Now, the Cleveland side, kind of difficult to talk about because if Evan Mobley ends up out, that really changes the scope of the team. You're adding in, 30 minutes or more to everybody else that's here. Definitely changes the way Jared Allen looks, big rebounding bump. And we're not seeing much ownership coming in here. It's kind of just like Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, Allen, LeVert, all around 10%. That's essentially what I got. As of right now, Karis LeVert is my most exposed guy, which I can't say feels great, but 4,700 point guard, shooting guard matchup against the Washington Wizards. Finding offense shouldn't be that hard, especially on the second unit. Karis LeVert getting out there against whatever the second unit for Washington looks like. Johnny Davis, Anthony Gill, Jared Butler. Like that's oof. LeVert might cook here, but I don't have a major stand on anybody. I find Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, and Allen to essentially be the same guy, just at different positions and different prices. Do you have anybody that stands out for you for Cleveland? Because obviously they're running into a matchup that they should just carve up.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I like LeVert at 4.7K. Either way, if Mobley is in or out, I think he's probably the easiest guy to get to. Reasonable price point there. Should play mid-20s minutes or so no matter what. So, yeah, LeVert looks pretty good. Now, my lean right now is that Evan Mobley does not play. So he didn't practice yesterday. He was seen putting up standstill shots, according to one of the beat writers. So that kind of leads me to believe that he won't play. And thinking about this too, it's like, why push it against Washington playing at home? So I'm leaning towards Mobley sitting. And if that's the case, then Jared Allen would look really good, 6.8K. Right now, he's not getting much ownership. I think that would change if Mobley gets rolled out. With Mobley off the court this year, 16.9 rebounds per 100 possessions. So gets a pretty big rebounding bump, and it makes sense because they're not really going to play another big. And then you would see more run for guys like, Okoro and Niang and Dean Wade and guys like that. So Mobley news is pretty important. As far as the main guys go, the other main guys, Mitchell and Garland, they're fine tournament plays. If you think Washington can keep it competitive, it's a great spot. But yeah, like LeVert a good amount. I'm leaning towards Mobley sitting. If that's the case, then I think Jared Allen would be probably my favorite play in Cleveland.
Yeah, he's going to look quite a bit better. Probably grabs an extra minute or two, changes his rate profile considerably, and then you'll be able to bump LeVert a little bit, Dean Wade a little bit. Not that he's some crazy per minute dude, but get a little bit of a bump across the board. Do you think that would bring George Niang into play for you?
I do, yeah, just because the price point. So yeah, Niang is actually he's 4.2. I thought he's a little bit cheaper than that. I still think he would be in play.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's not a bad point per minute player. So yeah, I think he would definitely be viable. I'm curious though what they would do with the starting lineup. My guess is probably Okoro and Dean Wade alongside Mitchell, Garland, and Allen.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. I think you don't have to really get too creative in this spot. Just let Garland and Mitchell cook, let Allen handle it, and just get some other guys out there that don't matter nearly as much. What a death game, man. I can't even imagine what this line looks like in March after Washington trades away anything that's not nailed down and they're playing even more young dudes than they already are. I mean, this can get to 20.
I was going to say probably over 20.
I'll say this much. With Mobley in, I have it at 20. Line 17 makes me believe that Evan Mobley is not going to play, which you mentioned, but oh boy, this is look, I mean, Washington's terrible. The best guy in plus minus overall, like in the projection models for Darko and EPM, is Joval at negative 0.8. That implies that there's not a single average player playing for Washington today, and it's not even particularly close. This is the craziest part. They don't have a single player in the lineup today that is an above average offense or defense guy. It's not even just the aggregate. They don't have a single positive number in offensive plus minus or defensive plus minus. That's pretty hard to do. You don't have like one guy that's just like a defensive specialist and has no talent anywhere else. No, these guys are just awful across the board.
Yeah, you would think someone would be positive offensively too. Like that's pretty crazy to think about.
Meanwhile, Mitchell's positive in both, Mobley's positive in both, Garland's positive on offense, Allen's both, LeVert defense, oddly enough, Dean Wade clearly defense, Sam Merrill is positive, Ty Jerome is positive on offense. Even like Sam Merrill's defense is a 0.0. Every single player on the team except for George Niang would rank as the best player on the Wizards. Via plus minus. Roll matters here. If you're like 0.7 like Dean Wade, you got to remember that it's 0.7 in that kind of role is like a 12% usage defense guy. It's not, that doesn't just mean like you can take on 25% usage and scale that up. God, thank God we're done talking about that game, although it's about to get a little bit worse. So I'll hit you guys with the schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. After this, live before lock, 6 p.m. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay on this stream. It just keeps going. You get another hour all the way up until 7 p.m. Doesn't stop there. Tonight, for the first time since last week. Yeah, since last week, because we've had 1, 2, 2, and 3 games last night. But there was football, so we had no playback. We're back on playback, watching basketball. Myself and Greg will be there at 7 p.m. We've got 2 games to check out. I really hope that Pacers and Sixers aren't a national TV game. I don't want to have to watch Washington and Cleveland for the entire hour, so fingers crossed. I don't know that yet. But you can come, watch the game. We'll talk about ownership. We'll talk about potential late swaps heading into 8 p.m. We'll talk about some of the bets that we have out for today. It's just a good hang. If you have League Pass, you could watch along with us. You just link your account to Playback. That's playback.tv/Stokastic. If you don't have League Pass, we have 20 VIP passes we could hand out so you guys can watch the games along with us. The Charlotte Hornets are 6.5-point dogs in Chicago, 234.5 total. Admittedly, it's pretty hard to talk about either side of this game right now, although there are some spots that we could hit and they don't get affected by the news. LaMelo's still out. Trey Mann's still out. Q-Tag Miles Bridges, potentially welcome back. Q-Tag Salon. So we need those two to be hashed out before we know what we got from Charlotte. And then for the Bulls, questionable Josh Giddey, questionable Nikola Vucevic, questionable Patrick Williams, who would be making his return after being out for a bit. Now, the Q-Tags will definitely matter for Charlotte, but in this case, they don't matter for this particular player. I don't think they do, at least. Vasily Micic is 5,100 on DraftKings, point guard only. 5,800 on FanDuel, point guard, shooting guard eligible. He is 55% owned on DraftKings and just north of 30 on FanDuel. And unfortunately for me and for everybody else, I like it and I understand why it's happening, and I'm getting to a bunch of Micic. Are you doing it today?
Yeah, I definitely understand why it's happening. I feel like he's going a little bit over-owned right now, though, pushing 60% for Vasily Micic. It is a really good matchup, and he has played 30-plus minutes in 4 of the last 5 games. But the thing that worries me is, like, obviously he's not, like, a part of the future. So, like, the minutes don't necessarily have to be there. Bridges and Salon, both Q tags, they're both ruled in. You know, the Hornets could do something weird. But, yeah, like we saw one game. It was when Micic was pretty popular, and he ended up getting benched for KJ Simpson, only played 19 minutes. But the other games, 34, 35, 35, 34, and 31 minutes. So like over the last 3 games, the assist numbers have been really good for him. 63.7 passes made, 15.3 potential assists per game. Like if you told me that Micic is playing 30 plus minutes here for sure, then yeah, I think he's a really, really good point per dollar play. I do think that there's a chance if he struggles, they can go elsewhere. So that's the only reason I bring that up at the current ownership that he's at. But yeah, Bridges news is pretty important. Brandon Miller is up to 9K. I think he would look a little bit better though if Bridges gets ruled out. With LaMelo Ball off the court this year, Brandon Miller's a 1.15 fantasy point per minute player. He's been playing big minutes. And again, matchup against the Bulls is pretty good. So Miller's still playable either way, but I think he would look a little bit better there if Bridges gets ruled out. And then Miles Bridges himself, keep it like, I think he could be limited. He's been out for like 3 weeks now, close to a month. So he could be limited. If he's full go though, 6K, like I think he's a pretty good point per dollar play. Nick Richards also getting no ownership. I think if this is a different slate, I would have a lot more interest, but with there being so many good center plays, it is kind of hard to go to him. The rest of these guys, I think it's really hard to get to like the wings, like Josh Green or Martin or Salon if he plays. So yeah, that's really it. Again, I think Micic is a good play. And if you told me he played 30 plus minutes, for sure playing him, but I think they could go a different direction if he does struggle.
You mentioned Brandon Miller. He's getting around 15% ownership on DraftKings. 9K shooting guard, small forward. Still looks good. I'm right around the field there. Slightly different play on FanDuel. Same shooting guard, small forward eligibility. 8,100. He's 37% owned and the most owned Charlotte Hornet on the FanDuel side. Being $900 cheaper than you are on DraftKings is going to get that done. I do think he looks clearly a lot better on FanDuel. But after that, I don't have too much. Obviously, there's a ceiling to Miles Bridges that could be interesting, but we don't have a clue how much he's going to play, if he even plays. I mean, there's not much we could really say about Chicago right now. Q-Tag Vooch, Q-Tag Giddey, Q-Tag Patrick Williams. Nobody's getting any real ownership now. All the main dudes are just around 10%. Do you have anything that like immediately catches your eye if they're all in? And if you don't, can we even break it down?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about, as you said, with there being a lot of Q tags. Assuming that everyone is in, no, there's no priorities. I think like any of the main guys, like Kobe White, Giddey, Levine, and Vooch would be playable. Vooch a little bit tougher because he's only center eligible. But yeah, if everyone is in, I think it's hard to feel really good about anyone. Obviously, if you start getting a few of these guys ruled out, it's going to change. Like Jalen Smith would be a phenomenal play if Vooch gets ruled out. Giddey, if he gets ruled out, like you're going to get more ball handling for Ayo Dosunmu. So yeah, like there's a lot to talk, or a lot that we're waiting for Chicago. So I think it's just like you said, pretty hard team to talk about.
Yeah, the biggest piece of news here is obviously Vooch, because if he's done, we get Jalen Smith at 3,500 at center. And then it becomes this weird dynamic of, well, do you pay down to 3,500 and get Jalen Smith, or do you pay up to one of the best players in the league? And the gap in what you need in fantasy points between those guys are crazy. But like Jokic, Embiid, and or who am I missing? AD. Two of those guys go for 70 plus. It's like, oh, it might not even matter what Jalen Smith does at that point, unless he hangs like a 40 plus burger. So it becomes a really interesting game theory question. But Jalen Smith, if he ends up being the starter over Vooch, will be massively owned because he's a real good per minute dude. 1.15 is where I have him right now. You could probably given him 24 minutes at a minimum at that point in time. I should note, Adama Sanogo also questionable with the G League team. So my guess is he's up if Vooch is out, and he's out if Vooch is in. But they're going to go to Jalen Smith, and he's going to look like one of the better value plays on the slate. Hell, I mean, you can roster him right now as a contrarian option, getting 4% ownership, hoping you step into a couple extra minutes. When you can just project him for him, he's probably going to be like a 7x value, and you're just going to need to do it. But until we get these Q tags hashed out, it's hard to break down Chicago depending on like the different permutations of which one of these guys end up out, or more than one.
Yep. Totally agree.
I will say this, and there's not too much I could read into it. When I have everybody in, I have the line spot on. Now, we're not talking about a ton of dudes that are like extra special good. So they aren't like big line movers if they're in or out, but like you could see one on both sides potentially. It's not like Salon being in or out is moving the line in any way. Vooch will move it a little bit, and I'm curious to see if that ends up moving at all. That's as of right now. My assumption is that they're all in, but that feels like a bit lofty. I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Williams is still one more game away. Oh no, Torrey Craig now listed as questionable. That throws another wrench into the plans for Chicago. Allergic reaction. Did he get into Andre Drummond's old avocado stash in Chicago?
That's exactly what I was thinking about too. Oh my God. Yeah, allergic reaction.
Ate a bad clam this morning. First 3 responses to the underdog post. Allergic reaction to playing. Bro allergic to hooping. Avocado question mark. That will go down as the weirdest thing that's ever happened in the NBA with regards to injuries, right?
The avocado one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. How about last night too with Jakob Poeltl being ruled out late scratch and then ruled back in? And I was like, what is going on right now?
And then just playing like normal, starting the second half. Like, yeah. What happened in 15 minutes? Did he just like shit himself in the locker room? He's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna need a minute here, guys. I don't know if I'm gonna keep shitting myself or not." Like,
yeah, I'm so confused as to what happened. I was very close to live betting Kelly Olynyk props, and I'm really glad I didn't. I would have got screwed.
It was so bizarre. It had to be something like he had to either be like throwing up or shitting himself, and they were just like, "Oh, we got to make moves right now and figure it out."
Yeah. Well, they said it was a back. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they were just lying. Yeah, who knows?
If it's your back, you don't go from like, he's not gonna be able to make it to he's back in.
That's why I was
everything's
so
fine. Maybe they just don't want to say like Jakob Poeltl doubtful bubble guts.
Yeah.
When I saw it, dude, I couldn't stop laughing because I immediately grabbed my laptop. I was like, "Oh shit!" I pulled it open and I looked down and I was like, "It's fucking locked 2 minutes ago. I can't even do anything with this."
Right.
Ended up playing 27 minutes off the bench. Didn't need to play any sort of closing rotation either. So he was just all set to play everything. Bruno Fernando got a start, played 2 minutes, made a bucket, got a steal, and they were like, "Thank you for your service, Bruno. Get out of here."
Yeah, that was all he played, right? He never played another minute.
Never came back in. Why don't you just start Kelly Olynyk then?
Right. Like, yeah, they like to give Bruno the spot start for some reason in situations like that.
In situations where the center comes back in and plays the rest of the game. That's what Bruno Fernando's role is. Yeah. Let's get away from the Chicago game now. Lakers, Minnesota. Lake Show 8.5-point dogs in mini, 213 total. This is the slowest paced game and by far the lowest total game on the slate. No LeBron James Jr. for this one. Also, no LeBron James. He's not going to be making it to this one. Whether that's rest or injury or something else, or he's getting children's blood cycled through him to bring back the fountain of youth. I'm not entirely sure. No Jackson Hayes, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Wood, Austin Reeves is probable. That got changed earlier today. Around 15% ownership for Rui, AD, and D'Angelo Russell. Now, AD slightly different on FanDuel, 37% owned. He has power forward center there. Way easier to roster AD on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. And then Austin Reeves is getting around 5%. Not much else coming into the Connects and Christies of the world. Do you have a preferred option for the Lakers, a guy that you're getting to more than others?
Yeah, I think it's Anthony Davis. The ownership has dropped on him with a lot of other good center plays, right? With Embiid, with Jokic, some of these other guys. So the ownership is going down on AD, and I like that for tournaments a lot. Right now, coming in sub 20%. So with LeBron James off the court this year, Anthony Davis is a 37% usage rate, and he is in 262-minute sample size, 1.69 fantasy point per minute player. So like the numbers are insane there for Anthony Davis. Yeah, I like the upside in him quite a bit. Now, last game, the Lakers did not start D'Angelo Russell, surprisingly, but he played really well and was on pace to close that game. My expectation is that he starts. It's not a guarantee, but yeah, he would have looked better for me if Reeves was out. With Reeves expected to play, little bit tougher to go to him. Austin Reeves himself has been out for a few weeks. They could take it easy on his minutes a little bit. So keep an eye on the news there. Connect, like the minutes have not been great on him. Like I thought he was going to play good minutes last game. And he still only played 22 minutes, was not on pace to close that game either. Rui Hashimura's price feels about right. So there's not a ton else here, but yeah, I think right now looking at ownership, Anthony Davis, one of my favorite GPP plays of the slate.
After we get done Denver, I'll put you to the fire on choosing between these three centers, but we'll get there when we get there. And honestly, the center position could look dramatically different if we get that Evan Mobley news and we get Vooch news. Like there's a lot left on the table that can change this one up in a big way. Guy I got the most of is Rui at 5,500. He's going to take every minute that he could possibly handle with no LeBron around. Not the worst per minute guy in the world, certainly not the best, like in and around 0.8. But it's a very different team and a very different role when LeBron isn't monopolizing the ball, which obviously he should on this team. Not that he's been all that good so far. Got a little bit of Russell. He clearly looks a little bit better. Nice to see him up to 6,100 now. His days of being like a $4,500 point guard appear to be over, at least for a little bit. And like I said, I have some Reeves. I'm actually under the field on AD right now, which is leading me to believe I have a pretty sizable stand on Nikola Jokic. And just for the record, everybody, totally cool with that one. If you got to cut one of these guys out of there, I'm okay with it. Like you can't play AD and LeBron or AD and Jokic and Embiid. I mean, you can in theory just match the field, but you're probably shaving one of them and getting to another one a little bit more. I don't have a preference between any of that, but it happens to be AD for this particular moment. And on FanDuel, like I said, completely different equation. The fact that you could roster him at power forward changes everything about the way that Anthony Davis looks. He's 37% owned and he deserves every bit of it. Minnesota, a team that honestly, they couldn't be an easier team to talk about. They really just don't do anything different ever. But because this Lakers defense is pretty poor, even in this low total game, Minnesota's pulling quite a bit of ownership for a team that makes no changes to their rotation. 10 to Ant, 10 to Randall, 10 to Conley, 10 to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 20 to DiVincenzo, 20 to Naz Reid, 20 to Jaden McDaniels. The lowest owned guy on the team is Rudy Gobert at 6,700. And I honestly find him like mildly intriguing on a different day, but he's been not nearly what you remember out of Rudy Gobert, at least on the offensive end. Not really pulling much ownership. Center could be loaded and is already kind of loaded. How do you want to manage Minnesota? Because I've got a ton of them right now. They're the most owned team on the slate on DraftKings. But I don't have anybody that I think is a preference. I just want them all.
Yeah, it's kind of my thinking as well. It's really hard to distinguish these guys, like the value plays with, NAW and DiVincenzo and McDaniels and Naz Reid and Conley even, all getting similar ownership too. Like I feel like if one of these guys or a couple of them are not getting much ownership and a couple of them were, like I probably would prefer the lower owned options, but they're all coming in similar ownership. I guess my favorite probably would be Naz Reid, just I think he has the highest ceiling of this group. Minutes are a little bit more in question for him. They're a little bit up and down. Like 2 games ago, he did play 32 minutes against Golden State. Last game, only 21. But I think the ceiling is the highest on him if you do get like mid to high 20s minutes. So yeah, I would say he's probably the guy like the best of the value plays. But McDaniels is never someone I'm excited to play. But the price has come down to a point where you got to consider him at 4K. The guards with like NAW and DiVincenzo are both below 4K. So, DiVincenzo especially struggled this year, but now he's firm at a price point where you have to consider him too. The minutes have not been amazing on Mike Conley. You had that stretch where he was playing 30 plus minutes. I know there have been a couple of blowouts, but only 25 minutes in their most recent game against Golden State. He's getting a little bit less ownership than some of the other value plays, but still a fine option. The spend ups are a little bit tougher to get to though, like Ant, Randall, Gobert, especially because he's only center eligible. But yeah, Ant and Randall, not out of play. I like the matchup for them, but they're just more contrarian plays for me. But yeah, it's kind of hard for me to distinguish these value plays. I guess again, my favorite probably would be Naz, but it's tough. I think they're all solid point per dollar plays.
Most I have of anybody is McDaniels at 26. I've got Reed at 24, but I've got 14 of Ant, 14 of Conley, 16 of DiVincenzo. I've got shares of Gobert. I've got shares of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I even have a solo share of Julius Randle. So every one of their 8 guys are in at least one of my lineups, and I'm happy about it in this matchup against the Lakers. This is a really bad defensive team. So the priority, I think, is Jaden McDaniels. What a fun statement to say. 4K small forward. It's because he's small forward. That's the hardest position to fill. You get some value on it, and you just hope that a couple shots go in and he's a little bit more active defensively. All right, 4 games down. Only 2 left on DraftKings, but 4 left total. I want you guys to sign up at Stokastic. It doesn't get easier than this. If you're playing DFS, I'm going to assume that you're at least interested in some sort of form of sports betting or pick'em sites, and you should be. And the best part of this is when you click the link, either in the description or if one pops up in chat, and you want to sign up, it essentially costs you nothing across both sites. It'll cost you your whatever the deposit is into either the Sportsbook or the pick'em site. It's not an outlandish amount. Some are going to be different than others. You're also going to get either bonus bets if it's a sports book or deposit bonuses at some of the pick'em sites. You're going to get something from those guys and a free month of whichever sport you choose at Stokastic. That covers projections, ownership, our entire Sims package, our premium Discord. When you put all of that together, make a small deposit into a pick'em site or a sports betting site that you haven't signed up at yet. Got to be legal in your state, obviously. Follow the instructions at the top of the page, and you end up in here for a month. Then you could lock up your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel, use that, finish in the top 3 of a contest of 5,000 or more entries. You can get another month tacked on top of that. When you win enough in that contest, you can get a Hall of Fame ring from us as well. So there's a lot of benefits to getting in free and potentially tacking on more free months after that. Very simply, click the link, sign up. We've got plenty of content for sport. Like if you like the sports betting and pick'em side, grab yourself an Odd Shopper subscription as well, because that is a way to absolutely print money if you'd like to. Game number 5, the Brooklyn Nets, 10-point dogs in Memphis, 228 total. Brooklyn is without, quite a few people like they normally are. Bojan Bogdanovic, no timetable to return. No Jalen Martin, no Tyrese Martin, no Cam Thomas, no Dariq Whitehead, no Zaire Williams, no Yangzi. I don't think that's how you say it, but I don't know. 20% ownership coming into Cam Johnson on DraftKings. 20% ownership coming into Nick Claxton on DraftKings. And then the next highest guy on anyone for Brooklyn is 3%. So it's a 2-man-ish slate, but I've got somebody that I have my eye on. Basically the same story on FanDuel. It's around 25 for Cam Johnson, 25 for Claxton, very little else. Let's just talk out Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton first. Claxton at 5,900, Cam Johnson 7K, small forward, power forward. I've got quite a bit of Cam Johnson. If I'm going to get to anything in this game, I'd like to get to one of the actual good people, and Cam Johnson is the best player on the Brooklyn Nets. Running into a buzzsaw of a Memphis defense, but I'm getting well over the field of Cam Johnson, a little bit under to Nick Claxton, but center be loaded.
Yeah, I think both those guys look good. One thing I wanted to know, that they listed Mobley's game time decision. One of the beat writers said he would be surprised if he plays, so kind of leans still towards doubtful, but we'll get that confirmation soon. But yeah, back to the Nets. Again, it's Cam Johnson, it's Nick Claxton that are getting ownership. Makes sense. Cam Johnson, 7K, reasonable price point, played 38 minutes last game. He's playing big minutes in competitive games right now. With Cam Thomas off the court this year, Cam Johnson, 1.07 fantasy point per minute player. So, stands out as a pretty good play there in the mid-range. Nick Claxton also saw good minutes last game. 33 minutes started. Sub 6K makes him look like a pretty good point per dollar option. No one else are getting any ownership. I do think Schroeder is at least a little bit interesting. With Cam Thomas off the court this year. He is 1.17 fantasy point per minute player. And he has a 28% usage rate. Assist numbers are solid as well, over 40% assist percentage. So I think Schroeder's at least a little bit interesting there for GPPs, but the rest of this team, I think it's really hard to go to them. Like, I think they're going to run a relatively deep rotation with Dorian Finney-Smith. You'll see some Ben Simmons, Day'Ron Sharpe play the backup 5, Jalen Wilson, Keon, Watford, Shake Milton. Like they have a lot of guys now. So I think it's a little bit tough to get to the value plays, but yeah, Johnson, Claxton, the guys that are the easiest to get to, and then a little bit of interest for me, at least, in Schroeder for tournaments.
Nope, you didn't get the guy right. It's not Schroeder. Although I understand rostering him in a GPP. That's certainly not a problem. That guy's going to get his shots up. I like Dorian Finney-Smith here at 4,800. Power forward only. Came back, finally played 31 minutes on the 8th, then got 5 days off to try to do that again today. It's 2% owned. I have him quite a bit more optimal than that. I really like the value. Like, it's a terrible spot, obviously, against Memphis, and Brooklyn's not very good, although they've been greatly exceeding expectations so far this season. But him getting no ownership, I kind of like him as like a GPP pivot to some other like 4K, 5K guy that might be grabbing a little bit more ownership than you would like. If he's going to be out there for 30 minutes, I mean, he's a 0.85 guy. He's not what you would expect if you didn't think about it too much. I'm intrigued by him as like a value-ish pivot.
Yeah, I like the call out there, especially if he's getting no ownership. So reasonable contrarian pivot off of some of the other value plays that are getting ownership.
John C. says, is this the guy that pees outside with his dog? Not yet. I just learned that I have to do that now after it didn't work today. Tomorrow, I will be the guy that pees outside with his dog. But today I wasn't, unfortunately, and that cost me him peeing on my furniture. All right, let's put Brooklyn to bed here. Let's talk Memphis, which is really not much of a conversation. 15% ownership coming into Brandon Clark on DraftKings, 10 to Bane, just shy of 10 to Morant and Triple J. Everybody's in single digits on FanDuel. I don't really know what I want to do here with Memphis. They're such a hard team to want to like load up on. I'm around 10% on Morant and Bane, a couple shares of Jackson, match the field on Brandon Clark, but like, I don't know how you would I don't know what would have to happen to look at Memphis and be like, oh, we got to get a lot of that dude. Like, it would have to be like Morant and Bane are both out and Pippen's price had fallen enough that you can get to him. But when these guys are at full strength, they're death to a DFS lineup.
Yeah, just the way they run their rotation, right? They're on such a deep rotation that it really is hard to feel good about any of these guys. One thing to know, in the most recent game, you did see 30-plus minutes for Ja and Bane. Now, that was against Boston, kind of expected in a bigger game like that. So I don't know if they'll need to play as much in a game like this, but 8.7K for Ja getting, sub 10% ownership, I think is at least a little bit interesting for GPPs. The two guys above 10%, Bane and Clark, are both fine options. Clark 4.3K, Ben starting at the 5, Ben playing low 20s minutes or so, pretty consistently in competitive games. So, reasonable value play there. Desmond Bane, as we mentioned, did play, last 4 games actually, he's played 30 plus minutes, 30, 31, 32, 33. So that's good to see. He does have shooting guard, small forward eligibility as well. So those 3 are really all I'm looking to. Jaren's getting very little ownership. Don't really want to go there. Don't think it's necessary to go to like these value options. I mean, maybe a little bit interested in Marcus Smart at 4.6. But that's just as a kind of GPP dart throw, I guess. Again, it's hard when this team is close to full health. Like, they just play such a deep rotation, kind of like Golden State, where it's really hard to prioritize these guys.
Yep. Couldn't completely agree. I love this team. Like, they're really fun. They're
a good team.
They're like, when Morant and Bane and Jackson can be there, these guys are really, really good. Anxious to see what they end up doing over the next couple of years. Let's close this out. Clippers and Denver. This is the end of the DraftKings slate, people. For the Clippers, we are missing some people, but nothing crazy. Derek Jones Jr. is out. Terrence Mann is still out. Everybody else is back, though. And that's giving us 30% ownership to Norm Powell, 25 to Kevin Porter Jr., and 10 to 15 on James Harden, Nick Batum, with another 10 coming into Chris Dunn. A lot less ownership coming in on FanDuel. Norm Powell's price is a bit higher. Kevin Porter Jr.'s price is a bit higher. But I'm getting to a bunch of Norm Powell, and I'm having no trouble getting the double digits on Porter, Batum, and James Harden. Not a single share of Ivica Zubac, though, in this spot. Too many centers, guys. Too many centers. Are you joining me on Norm Powell Island today?
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good. My question is, so do you think they're going to go Harden, Dunn, Coffee? Oh, wait, never mind. Hold on. Yeah, so it'll be the starting lineup will be Harden, Dunn, Powell, Coffee, and Zubac, right? Yeah. For some reason, I totally blanked on Powell. I was thinking Batum could start. But, yeah, I mean, this team is...
Hey, I will say, Basketball Monster has Batum in at power forward right now. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think again, they're missing a few of the wings, right, with Derrick Jones Jr. and Mann. So keep an eye on the lineup there. It's going to be one of Coffee or Batum that move into the starting lineup there. But yeah, Powell in his most recent game played 35 minutes, so clearly no longer under restriction. Previous games he was in the mid-20s, so he's good to go. He's got nice eligibility. I think he stands out as a really good option here in the mid-range. Again, you got Batum at 3.1 getting a little bit of ownership. Like, he's going to have to play a little bit more with Derrick Jones Jr. and Mann out. Coffee at 4K as well. I think Batum looks like the better point per dollar play. This is a little bit cheaper, but yeah, those guys should have to play a little bit more. You're getting ownership to Kevin Porter Jr. as well, 4.2K. That ownership scares me a little bit, but could see him playing a little bit more too, just because, again, they're missing a couple of these wings. So I understand why he's getting some love. No one else really getting much ownership. Again, Zubac's not getting much love. I think he will have to play a lot. I think it's just really hard to get to him with all the other centers. James Harden feels about right, priced about right there at 9.7. Don't think it's necessary to go to Chris Dunn. I do think like Jordan Miller could play a little bit more too with 3.6K. He's actually not an awful point per minute player. So maybe a little bit interesting him as a contrarian play as well. So yeah, some of these wings are interesting, but I think Powell is definitely your best play right now in the Clippers.
I'm with you. He's in half of my lineups right now. Norm Powell season here against Denver. And then we get to Denver. And I was wrong. I don't have a huge stand on Jokic. Right around the field, he's 28% owned on DraftKings, 9% owned on FanDuel. He's 12-8 on FanDuel and doesn't get the ability to play power forward. I don't know why AD has it and Jokic doesn't, because AD doesn't play the 4 anymore. That's not his position at this point. But that helps out getting AD on FanDuel over Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon is also 18% owned as of right now. Right around the field on him. I think Jokic and Gordon are clearly the two guys to get to, but we are still awaiting the status of Jamal Murray. I don't anticipate that he's playing, but at the same time, having him in does make the line correct for me. So I'm a little intrigued to see what we're going to get there. If Murray happens to be out, we're going to get to a little bit more of Russell Westbrook at that point, and then we get the James Harden Russell Westbrook duel that nobody wants. How do you want to handle Jokic? And then let me know, who do you prefer, Jokic, Embiid, Anthony Davis?
Okay, yeah. So Jokic right now, I think he looks really good either way, whether Jamal Murray plays or not. So yeah, he's getting ownership. I think he should be. He's been playing out of his mind recently. 12.5K, still a reasonable price point for him, to be honest. So yeah, really like Jokic there. Now my lean is that Jamal Murray does not play. So he was only able to go through parts of practice a couple days ago. And I don't know if you saw earlier, they actually Underdog had a tweet where they ruled him out, and then they're like, oh wait, no, he's questionable.
I saw it because I didn't see the questionable. We have a projections call at 1:30.
Okay.
So I saw the first tweet, immediately closed out of what I was looking at and started taking him out. Get into the call. Rich comes in and I was just like, Murray's out. He's like, no, he isn't. It's questionable. I was like, huh?
Yeah. So that was kind of wild. But so I think it's so Russell Westbrook is 6.3K. Norman Powell is 6.3K. Like, what you could do, since this is the late game, and I believe this is the standalone late game. So you could just have Powell in your utility spot or your guard spot. And then if Jamal Murray gets ruled out, you could pivot to Russell Westbrook, because Westbrook, I think, would look like a really good play here.
He'll look better than Powell does.
Yeah. I think he would be one of the better point per dollar plays if Jamal Murray gets ruled out. Westbrook, in the 2 games that he started with Jamal Murray out, 62 passes made, 17 potential assists. So yeah, keep an eye on that. My lean is that he doesn't play. Jamal Murray doesn't play. If he doesn't, I think Westbrook looks really good. The only other guy really to mention here is Aaron Gordon. He's getting about 20% ownership, 5.5K. I think he's in play for me because of the price point. So yeah, pretty consistent role there for Gordon. Competitive game, should play low to mid 30s minutes. Let's see. Yeah, the price, I was going to maybe mention Strother if Jamal Murray gets rolled out, but he's up to 4K. So I don't think it's worth it to go there. So yeah, really like Jokic, obviously. And then, if Jamal Murray gets rolled out, I think Westbrook looks really good.
I'm not trying to point this out, Big Top Dog, because I think it's a crazy statement, but I did want to expound on it. He said, well, if Murray is out, Jokic is even more likely to feast. I don't know how true that is. when you swap Jamal Murray out for Russell Westbrook, are you real? Is that a benefit to Nikola Jokic? Because I don't think that it is. You're still getting a guy that is going to create more, or at least he's going to create more assists than Jamal Murray does. And he's going to look for his shot at least the same way that Jamal Murray does. I would argue that it's not going to matter for Jokic, but I would argue that it's at best neutral to go from Murray to Westbrook.
It's a good point. I think it's around neutral too. So yeah, I don't really think it's like a huge deal either way for Jokic, whether or not Jamal Murray plays.
It's a lot different when it was like Monty Morris as the backup point guard, or someone totally useless that's stepping in and like not really grabbing a lot of usage. But Russell Westbrook is the type of guy that I don't think makes that better. Yes, I agree that Jokic scores more when Murray is out. He has only had Russell Westbrook on his team for 18 games or whatever the hell, how many games have been played so far this season. It's at least curious because they haven't had a guy like Westbrook filling Murray's minutes ever before. It's intriguing.
Yeah,
it changes nothing, though. Jokic is awesome.
And as you said, if it was like a normal backup point guard, then Jokic would look way better. But it's Westbrook who is, relative high usage, is going to have the ball in his hands a ton. So yeah.
Just something to think about. It's not an immediate like, oh, everything just goes skyrocketing for Nikola Jokic like it used to be. All right, let's close this out quickly because we only have to talk about the FanDuel side here. These games are not on the DraftKings main slate. Phoenix and Utah. Suns are 7-point favorites in Utah, 233 total. Everybody's back for Phoenix at this point. Kevin Durant, probable. Whatever they want to play, they can play today. 15% ownership coming into a $4,800 Yusuf Nurkic. I have no idea how many minutes that dude can play. Next highest owned guy on the Suns, 5% to either Booker or Beal. I think Booker's probably a little under-owned for what this slate is, and I'd like to have him to just make like late swaps a little bit easier, but I don't really see any major priority from Phoenix. I'm certainly intrigued by a $4,800 Yusuf Nurkic, but with the amount of centers they have now, like he could just play 22 minutes and they ease him back.
Yeah, I think it's with this team basically fully healthy. I think it's really hard to prioritize anyone. Also, like I think there's a chance that KD or Nurk could be like somewhat limited. Nurk's been out for a couple weeks. KD's been out for a couple weeks as well. So those two, they could take it easy a little bit on their minutes. I like the price on Nurk over there on FanDuel, but again, high opportunity cost. So yeah, just pretty unappealing team, I would say, on the FanDuel slate.
What's less appealing than Phoenix? The Utah Jazz. 11% ownership to John Collins. Essentially nothing to anyone else. Clarkson, probable. Isaiah Collier, now available. Kyle Filipowski, available. David Jones-Garcia is out. I didn't know that was a human being. It sounds like a serial killer. That's a serial killer's name. If it really, you don't need that is a guy that you watch a Netflix documentary about. Well, he's not going to be available today anyway because he's off making a new killing. Lauri Markkanen probable. Svi out. Cody Williams still with the G League team. I kind of like the idea of like Markkanen in a GPP or, well, maybe that's just it. John Collins looks okay. Colin Sexton looks okay. I don't really want too much from Utah.
Yeah, I think the front court guys, Collins and Markkanen, probably the easiest to get to. On FanDuel, 7.2 and 7.3K respectively. Makes them look like solid plays. The price is too high there. And then Kessler, like his minutes have been up, but 7-8 on FanDuel is too hard to go to him. Jordan Clarkson being back, I think makes, Colin Sexton's minutes a little bit more up in the air. So a little bit, you're going to not feel as great clicking Colin Sexton. So yeah, I think the two guys I like the best here would be Collins and Markkanen, and they're more just contrarian plays.
And then we get to a real gem, a true gem. San Antonio Spurs, 3-point favorites in Portland, 225 total. For the Spurs, no Stephon Castle, no Zach Collins, no Keldon Johnson, no Trey Jones. 25% ownership to Wemby, 25% ownership to Julian Champagnie. Make sure you're clicking the correct Champagnie today, although technically they're both decent. The Washington version isn't as good as Julian is on FanDuel. 20 to Sohan, 25 to Chris Paul, 10 to the Barnacle of the Bay, 20 to Devin Vassell. If you're playing on FanDuel, you got a lot of late swap opportunity because you're probably getting to quite a bit of the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, Spurs look really good here. Again, with three guys out, Castle, Keldon, and Zach Collins. Definitely a team I think you're going to want some exposure to. Wembanyama, 11.3K, should play mid-30s minutes in this game. So I think he looks like a really solid option. Now, starting lineup, do you think it's going to be Chris Paul, Champagnie, Harrison Barnes, Sohan, and Wembanyama?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I think
so.
I think they want to keep Devin Vassell off the bench. But either way, I think Vassell is, a good play here at 6K. Shooting guard, so a little bit more usage there. Champagnie's probably going to play big minutes. Sohan, is the stat sheet stuff a reasonable price point. I think Harrison Barnes is going to have to play a lot. He's only 4.4, so he looks like a pretty good value play. So good amount to like here from this team. Bass, you should play the backup 5, but I don't think it's necessary to look to him. Omuklashvili should be in the rotation, but he's only center eligible too, so can't go there. Wesley and Branham, I think, will see rotation minutes too, but on the FanDuel slate at least, I don't think that's necessary. So those main guys, Wemby, Chris Paul, Champagnie, Vassell, Sohan, Barnes, I think look like good plays.
Evan Mobley out.
Okay, that's good for me.
Finally, for Portland, not much we could break down here. There's 10% ownership coming into Shaedon Sharpe, 10% ownership to Kamara. That is not something that will really move around too much. It could go up a little bit, but every center they have is questionable today. DeAndre Ayton's questionable. Donovan Klingen's questionable. Dwap Reith is questionable. Time Lord is questionable. We need to know how that shakes out before you could really have a great feel. If you just project these guys like they're all in, Portland doesn't look that interesting. If that breaks the right way, Time Lord at 5,100 with power forward center eligibility could look interesting. But until we know it, none of them look good.
Yeah, with them all being questionable, if they all get rolled out, you probably get like Jabari Walker at the 5. But I don't think that's going to happen. Rob Williams and Klingen both went through full practice yesterday, so I think they're going to play. If Ayton gets rolled out, though, then you probably get Klingen starting, then Rob Williams backing him up. Klingen's only 4K on FanDuel, so that actually would make him look like a pretty good value option in that scenario. The rest of the team, you're getting some ownership to Kamara. I think he's a fine value play, 4.4K. Not the best point per minute player, but should play 30-plus minutes in a competitive game. I think Shaedon Sharpe's a little bit interesting, coming in around 10%. He's got shooting guard, small forward eligibility over there on FanDuel. Simon's another reasonable contrarian play as well, 6'4". Kind of Jeremy Grant as well. All the main guys I think are fine guys to mix in for GPPs. No priorities there. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on the 8 news because that could open up some value if he gets rolled out.
Yeah, I expect Robert Williams to play. His isn't an injury per se. He's coming back from a concussion.
Yeah.
So once he's available, I assume, unless that concussion was next level crazy and he's not doing okay, I assume he's just cleared and good and you don't worry about it. It's not like some lower body injury where you're on pins and needles wondering if he can do it. The rest of these guys, who the hell knows? Hell of a slate today, man. That was fun.
Yeah, that was actually good to talk about. I forgot, I didn't answer your question with the 3 centers, AD, Jokic, and Embiid. I think for me right now, looking at ownership, it's going to be Anthony Davis, just because he's the lowest owned, but you can't go wrong with any of those guys.
There we go. Tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, DK__DFS, or on YouTube, DKDFS.
There we go, everybody. Normally, there'd be a brief break before this show and Live Before Lock, which is coming up next. But not on Fridays, folks. We just do it immediately. Live Before Lock right now. Hi, guys. Eric in the house. Matt Bellman in the house. What's up, boys?
What's up, guys?
What's up, fellas?
What's going on? You just throwing me on here? I didn't even have my TV set up or anything. There we go. It's okay.
Well,
it's okay.
Maybe you should have taken the time to set your stuff up while you were waiting to come on.
Maybe you should be nice to me for the first time in your entire life, but actually you would never.
I feel like you two are getting ready to go rob a house here. It's just a full blackout mode.
I'm comfy, okay?
I got the all black gear too here.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You're the odd man out here with no black.
I'm just wearing light black. Light black.
Fair.
Light black. I got the memo, but I don't want to fully conform. I'm not a sheep.
You got your Jared Allen rebounds ladder in like me? I hope so.
I got his
missed
PR
out on that
earlier, so yeah.
Oh, you
I'm
got
tired
in
of
earlier?
taking
Okay.
betting tips from you, man. You boned me 2 nights ago.
Oh, well, okay. I boned DK too, for what it's worth.
I took that as well. Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I lost $888 on it. So,
Yeah, I'm
if
homeless
you
now
really want to
because
be
of that,
specific
Eric,
about
so.
it, nothing
I
like an
lost.
adjusted 12 minutes, 2 points from Luka Doncic in the first quarter. I mean, couldn't have been a better read. I had a sub that kind of tipped me onto it, and I worked. Yeah, whatever. We lost money.
If you knew he was playing 12 minutes, I would have convinced my wife to be like, I would have been like, hey, let's hit that home equity loan and take out whatever we can and get it down.
It was as positive EV play as you'll ever run into. But the terrible part about being in the betting world is sometimes you lose really good bets. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. So you have to deal with the variance of it. And we do it in DFS all the time. And we're going to start breaking it down here now. Josh, DK, they're hitting the exit button. Have a great night,
Later,
gentlemen.
boys.
Thanks for hanging.
Yep.
Great show, fellas.
Fantasy Tips Matt. It's on the screen right there. My guy, Matt Bellman. Let's flip it around here. Hang on. Put my thing down, zip it, and reverse it. He's ready to rock. And, well, he's Cleveland's finest out there. You look behind him. Oh, don't look at that because they're the Cleveland Guardians now. But it's Matt Bellman, my friend here. Fantasy Tips Matt. Follow him on X. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good, man. Back-to-back shows with you. Pumped. Getting into that good vibe. I was racking my brain this morning how when we were talking last night, you could have been so much over Stuart, and I wasn't when we were running the same Sims. And it was because I had my stuff on high stakes because I was only playing a couple lineups.
There it is.
And that changes everything because of the ownership. So that was why it didn't make sense to me while we were talking, and I couldn't figure it out, but that's clearly why. So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, so for me, I usually go right between the low stakes and then whatever the archetype is, the marquee event.
Yeah, the marquee.
I usually go like right between that because I usually play the $4, the $1 every day, mini max once in a while, and then obviously whatever the main tournament is, I usually have 20 lineups or so in that. Kind of what I'm doing tonight as well with a 150 in the mini max here. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I think it's a really good slate. I think we have a really good one in front of us for whatever type of style player you are. Obviously, I'm more MME. Matt over there. He is one of your better high-stakes players in the DK lobby. You probably don't want to be running into him too often, but I was winning the $4 with a train of Stokastic subs all night last night until the very, very end, but my single entry ended up with Sabonis, so I had a very, very fun time, but enough about that. We got Jacob behind the virtual paywall. Let's start breaking down over the next 53 minutes before we turn you over to the playback show, which I need to jump into as we are talking about this, but let's start with Evan Mobley out. What is that going to change for you here as a Cleveland, as an established member of the Cleveland Cavaliers Mafia? What are we going to plan to do here with our lineups in this spot with your team?
So I don't really think it does anything for it. I don't think it does a lot for who's ever starting for Mobley because that guy, whether it's Dean Wade or whoever it is, just isn't going to have much value from a fantasy perspective besides their price. But I think it does a lot for Jared Allen. You were just talking about his rebound ladder. I mean, this is a great matchup. He's not like cheap, but he's cheaper than he has been all season. His average tag is like 7,200. He's 6,800. Certainly has upside at this price. This is a really good center slate. So I don't think you like lock him in everywhere, but I think he looks like a really, really good play now. I think he was already in play as like a tournament flyer before the Mobley news. With Mobley out, I think he looks like one of the better centers on a deep center slate. I think it makes Mitchell look better. I think it makes Garland look better. I mean, Mobley has taken a huge usage bump this year from what he had done in years past. He's been arguably the Cleveland's best player overall. So with him off the court, I think you're going to see Mitchell of old, Garland have the ball more. I mean, all these guys get a boost. The main three guys. And then as far as the other guys go, I think you could take flyers because they're all cheap, whether it's Okoro, Wade, I mentioned George Niang, whoever starts. I'm not sure who it's going to be. I think those guys are in play as point per dollars plays, but I'm not like excited about it. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel good about George Niang. I think he ends up getting the start over what we're looking at here. We have a lot of ownership coming in on Dean Wade. And if Dean Wade ends up being the starter, I get it. That's kind of who we have assumed to be the starter. But we've seen George Niang start to take on a little bit of a role on this team. Isaac Okoro is there as well. I'm assuming that he's going to be your three out there, but he played 31 minutes against Miami. Maybe get a little bit more shooting on the court to help out Donovan Mitchell, to help out Darius Garland. and then have Karis LeVert come off the bench. Usually it's been LeVert and George Niang in that hockey change out. Ty Jerome as well, been in that second unit and playing pretty decently well. Those three together. But I look at this Washington spot as one where, why would you play Evan Mobley? So that was kind of my logic of why I was looking at Jared Allen all day and ended up on that ladder. And you should be able to dust off a little bit of Tristan Thompson, but even at 3K, he's not going to be interesting. If Dean Wade ends up being the starter at 3,800, I'm kind of uncomfortable with what I'm looking at with the ownership for him. Like a third of the field's lineups, I get that we're kind of like quote unquote value starved here at the moment, but we're talking about one of the worst fantasy performers, 0.72 fantasy points per minute. Even if you put him in for like 28, 30 minutes, he's not going to look great. And, you know, there's obviously the downside where George Niang can get stuff done on a floor. So I'm hoping it's Niang instead of Wade. We'll get the news on how that ends up panning out. But thank you, Jacob, for pulling that up here on the screen as we start breaking down everything else. Does anybody else? Because you say Evan Mobley defensively, offensively, he's been pretty decent.
I said offensively.
Yeah, 18.3 points per game. He's not exactly a zero. The usage has started to rise up.
He's been amazing this year for Cleveland. It's been the talk of the town with the Browns being awful, the Guardians not spending any money. Evan Mobley's been the talk of the town for this entire regular season. He's been playing really good basketball.
40% from three. I mean, 22 for 55 on the season as well. I think that's a big deal. If you can have Evan Mobley shoot 40% from three, he's going to be one of the best players in the league for the next however many years to come. You know, if he shoots 38% from three, you would live with that. Really, really good stuff from him. But Isaac Okoro, 4,100. Dean Wade, 3,800. I get that the value is there, but how do you feel about Garland? Because I think Garland at 7,500, he's kind of the guy that, for me, if this news was going to break this direction, I think he's probably the guy who goes slept on a little bit. We've got him at 14% at 7,500. We have Micic. We have a number of other point guards here on this slate that we're going to dive into. But just to round out the conversation on Cleveland, how do you feel about Garland as a tournament option?
Really nice bump for Garland and Mitchell without Mobley. I like them more now. I wouldn't say they're like auto locks, but what I'll say about them is in my highest simulated ROI lineup right now in the Sims, it starts off with Garland, Mitchell, and Wade. So it looks like our projections have Wade. I don't know if starting, but playing a bunch because he's popping in the Sims as of right now. So I like Mitchell more. I like Garland more than I did. Again, I feel a little bit uncomfortable playing like Garland and Mitchell together because this game could get blowout-y and they might lose run. Then again, if you're on the side of the team that's blowing out, they could get there even without playing, some minutes in the fourth quarter. There are also other really good plays on the slate, like Russell Westbrook potentially. We won't get to that game until later, if potentially, but he's maybe the best play on the slate if Jamal Murray is out. Same with Jalen Smith if Vucevic is out. We already have Anthony Davis and Jokic and Embiid, so it's tough to say that any of these Cavs are the best plays on the slate, but they all get a boost. And the other guy that I like a lot is Karis LeVert coming off the bench. Just opens, no Mobley opens things up for everyone on Cleveland, LeVert included.
Matt, we need you to jump into playback here really quickly, if you could. Jump into playback quick, just add to stage, and we'll be ready to rock. Thank you, Dan, for the alert there. And obviously, I 100% agree. People are saying, Eric, stop gatekeeping. I don't even know what that means. But anywho, people saying that Dean Wade, one of the better defenders in the league. I've been beating the drum for that for a couple of years, defending that. Dean Wade is an unbelievable
defender. Do you know
why do you want to roll? I don't.
The Vanilla Wolf.
That's fantastic. Also, that could not describe his basketball game less. He's not even an active defender. He's just smart. He's a very smart basketball player. He's your 90-year-old guy at the Y, running in too short of shorts, really good decision maker. Dean Wade defensively, though, just it's kind of like slow-mo to some extent, slow-mo a little bit better.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
It's kind of how it fits. But anywho, let's dive into this slate because we've got 46 minutes before we turn things over to playback. Do jump into playback too. Make sure that you guys check out Josh and Greg. Greg, hopefully his car gets fixed and whatever the hell else he was making up so that I had a host today. But you know what? I'm all right with it because I get to hang out with Matt Bellman for a second consecutive day. And I 15x'd my money yesterday. So I'm very happy with him at the moment. Thank you to Domantas Sabonis as well. But let's dive into it. I want to start with some of the more popular plays on the slate. Sometimes we bounce around to certain teams and pieces of news. We did get news that Patrick Williams is going to play here. We'll see if he ends up starting. That's not obviously as big as what Josh Giddey is. Josh Giddey is a very important part for me because I think you're going to get some really under-owned Chicago Bulls here in the event that ends up coming to fruition. I had a Prize Picks card that I tweeted out to the Tails Discord where I do like the idea of just playing the combination of Zach LaVine. It's like 34.5 fantasy score. They use FanDuel scoring for that. And then Kobe White as well, somebody that I want to get to a little bit more of than the field. But right now, Micic is just destroying the point guard position because it's just under the assumption that he's going to continue to get unlimited run. But we have Miles Bridges, who's expected to be back today. He's questionable. This is the first time he's been upgraded to questionable on the injury report. If he ends up playing, I got to tell you, I feel pretty uncomfortable firing it up in that amount, like 50+%. And I think Salon matters too, because I think there's worlds where Brandon Miller can take over the point guard position. And even with ball and man out, we're talking about the most popular play on the entire slate being 55% owned Vasilij Micic. And he's gotten benched multiple times on multiple occasions just by turning the ball over ad nauseum. That's what he did against Philly. That led to just 19 minutes for him there. Kind of shorted up against the Knicks and against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but against Indy, started to show up there again. He did have the 9 assists to go with it. He's kind of a double-double threat, which is kind of wild for a guy who averages like 8 and 4, but that's what happens when you get 35 minutes for Micic with his assist rate. How do you feel about him? Good chalk, bad chalk, neutral? What's your game plan with Micic today?
Honestly, it's tough to answer that right now because there's so much news we're waiting on.
Yeah.
It could potentially be very good chalk because of how he's played recently, his minutes, his price tag, all that stuff. But the other side of it is everything you said combined with other really good plays, not just that are available now that could open up. So it's hard to answer that question right now. If the slate started right now and everyone that was projected, questionable was in, I think he'd be very good chalk. But I don't expect that to be the case. I expect Murray to sit, which to me makes Westbrook an infinitely better play than Micic as of right now.
So if you're in the Sims tool making work of that to try to get to some more Russell Westbrook, I kind of prefer the idea. Like, again, it gives you another hour. If we just jam Micic right now and we have an opportunity to get to more of him, it's an 8 p.m. start time, 5 p.m. Pacific. And I think you're going to have plenty of time if we get that Jamal Murray news before that game to fire it up. But with Washington, Cleveland, Indy, Philly, obviously both of these spots kind of got more interesting. That being specifically Cleveland, and then Chicago just continues to be interesting to me because they're so undervalued. If you get Josh Giddey ruled out, if you get Nikola Vucevic ruled out, I want to make way for some later lineups, but it's hard to pass up some of the Cleveland value. That's where like a 35% Dean Wade, if he's starting, is probably something that I end up hitting eject on in some capacity. But yeah, Micic, I'm okay just playing it for now as a placeholder, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, again, I would say that we're not lucky, but that's the first word that came to mind, that it's not in Charlotte. It's in Chicago, so we get that extra hour. But again, I think if this game were in Charlotte and it were at 7 and, the Denver game, we didn't have that news, I think there'd be a big ownership edge on Westbrook where we might not get that. The other side of that is Murray might play. So as of now, I think you can make rational cases for Micic being a very good play or fading him. I ultimately think at his price tag, though, like, you can play him or you can not play him. I don't think he's going to be the decider on this slate. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. Let's jump out from DK for a second and jump to FanDuel, because I think there's one piece of news that I find to be very, very interesting over there. It's DeAndre Ayton. It's the only game that really has an injury tag that's going to be affecting it. I can't predict the future in terms of like injury tags popping up out of nowhere or Jakob Poeltl needing to take a dump and then not being able to get out on the floor in time or whatever the hell happened yesterday. And we're getting this Bulls news as I'm saying this, so I'm going to pause for 1 second. Nikola Vucevic ruled out. Holy mother of God, Jalen Smith, how are you this fine day? Josh Giddey available to play. Didn't see that one, but Vooch ruled out. Hello, value at the center position. How much? Good Lord Almighty. All of the Jalen Smith and all the land, right?
Yeah, like again, I thought that last night there were reasons to fade Stewart just because it seems like Detroit doesn't want to play him a ton, and I didn't love the matchup, and because he was going to be so chalky tonight. First off, I think Smith is a better DFS player. He's a better points per minute player. Even though Stewart's not bad, Smith is a very good points per minute player. Like whenever he started or gotten good minutes, he comes through. It's almost like Bobby Portis in a way. Like he's a good DFS player, and he'll be very popular because he's only 3,500. But there's a lot of good centers on this slate. So, he probably won't be as popular as I personally think he should be. I think he's like by far the best play on the slate now.
Yeah, we got official news that Dalen Terry has been ruled out as well. So that's definitely something that matters. Also, our dev team wins. Dean Wade going to be starting here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's start breaking this down in chunks, purely because we just got the Cleveland starting lineup. I'm going to give ourselves a minute or two to get everything updated from Chicago. I think Jalen Smith is obviously going to be an absolute jam, but I do have one play. We'll get to the nuke of the night here, so have that on cue. As well, producer Jacob. Smash the like button, if not for myself, if not for Matt Bellman, for producer Jacob. He's been working since, 7 a.m.? Well, before that, because he would have had to start earlier. I filled in at 7 a.m. on the NFL Strategy Show. Hopefully, Lavi's having a fantastic day with his wife. Those are lovely things. But I want to look at this Cleveland situation because now we do have an opportunity cost on what that value is. I think Dean Wade's ownership is going to come down, 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 as Jalen Smith goes way, way, way up, where I'm probably going to have nearly 100%, if not 100% of him. But with Dean Wade starting, what stands out to you the most here on the Cleveland side? Because I really think that George Niang, he's going to be like 1-2%. I might take some shots on it, but Dean Wade is out on the floor for a purpose. It is to play really, really good defense. I doubt he gets a lot of blowout run, and he's a terrible fantasy producer.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wade's fine because he's 3,800, but now with Jalen Smith in play, I don't know. There are other guys I like more than Dean Wade. It's a great matchup. He could walk into 20 to 25 fantasy points, but I don't think there's real upside here. I think you're just playing him because of the price tag. If you need a guy at that price, I think he's fine. He's certainly playable. Not a guy I'm prioritizing though.
All right.
Yeah, that's just how I see it. How about you?
I'd probably play 0 if I had to guess. Just the way that I do things. I want this late news. I think Jamal Murray now is the questionable tag we're waiting on. Miles Bridges does matter to some extent because he'll make other pieces on Charlotte look worse. I don't want to play this amount of Micic. I think Misic's ownership will come down too because now you get a guy that you can just plug and play at sub 4K, and he has 4.1K on FanDuel. I just saw a question from somebody in there. I don't really care. He's going to be the best piece of value on both sides. There's an opportunity cost at center when you have Jokic on a slate. So we'll see what else shows up. But even still, it's going to be hard for me. If I put this gentleman, Jalen Smith, in for 28 minutes, I get 100% of them on FanDuel. I just ran it.
He looks too good.
Yep. Too good point per dollar. Fire it all up, friends. And I'm going to refresh this and see what we got done on the Chicago side of things. Everybody working overtime here on the dev team. We really appreciate them. 37 minutes before lock, 1 minute ago, we got the updates. So if we could, producer Jacob, I want to pull up Chicago's projections and see if anything has changed for us. Not in a pronounced amount here. Josh Giddey going to be a little bit undervalued on DraftKings at the moment. Vooch, yeah, we need to get him out. So we're still waiting here on a couple of different things to pull up. And Torrey Craig, unlikely to play with that allergic reaction that popped up out of nowhere. He's not related to Andre Drummond, I don't think. They did play together. Maybe there's something there. They found the same avocado thing. I'm sure the guys on the last show made that joke, so I'm just going to skip out on it. They're sharp like that. They understand ball. They know ball too, Matt. That's for sure. But I want to start diving into Chicago here because there's one guy that takes a massive rate hike in the absence of Vooch. And that, while we're waiting to refresh, because we still have Vooch in, producer Jacob, I want to do the nuke of the night. You ready? The nuke of the night. Bang! God, that gets me so hype. I love being able to hear it and see it and feel it the same way that everybody else does. I hope you enjoy that as much as I do. But I'm going to ask you first, Matt, because we did get some interesting news. Obviously, Cleveland, no Evan Mobley, no Nikola Vucevic here for the Bulls. There's lots of plays you can go here with this, but I'm looking at a player that I still think is going to be underowned relative to my chances that I think that they end up in the optimal lineup. Who is your favorite player of the night, also known as the Nuke of the Night?
I'm going with the guy I mentioned in passing a little bit earlier. Give me Karis LeVert, 4,700, elite matchup against Washington. No Mobley just opens things up for everyone on the Cavs, and they're going to need more scoring. So give me Karis LeVert. He's going to be under 20% owned, and I think he's in a really, really good spot for upside.
Absolutely love it. Karis LeVert looks really, really good to me. Now that he's not in the starting lineup, I don't think we assumed that he would start at any point in time. I think that made sense. Now, there's a part of me that wants to make Russell Westbrook the Nuke of the Night. He's 6,300. I think that is too cheap. If you
I thought about it too.
Out of there, but it's really hard to sit on that news and not really figure it out. So it's all right, I need to get somebody who's still kind of expensive. I need to have some versatility in the late games. I don't think I'm going to be jamming Cleveland the way that I was anticipating. And so I'm just looking at Chicago. And we got news that Patrick Williams is going to be playing 20 to 24 minutes. We've got Sonogo, who it sounds like is going to be available for this game, but I'm waiting on confirmation for that as well. But no matter what happens, there is a guy with shooting guard small forward eligibility. And I have nuked of the night, the correct time, Ayo Dosunmu. That guy puts up 60 plus, puts up a triple-double, makes me look smart. Man. I have nuke of the night, Kobe White, in a night that he ends up knocking down 7-8 threes, making me feel like a genius as well. But I have not nuked of the night, Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, shooting guard, small forward, 7,800. His rates with no Vooch on the floor, only a 65-minute sample size this season, but it's a 1.52 DraftKings points per minute, 62% effective field goal percentage, 37.5% from three, and a 34% assist rate, a 12.5% total rebound rate. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I know we're updating everything on the back end that Jalen Smith just has to start. I think he does start for what it's worth. Otherwise, it would have to be like Sonogo or something really, really random. But I feel better about Jalen Smith being really, really good chalk under the assumption that he starts. And I want to jam him, but I don't think Zach LaVine's going to get the kind of attention that he should. He's still sub 8K. You're talking about Vooch being one of the better rebounders / scorers on this team. And as such, yeah, I think Kobe White at their price points, Josh Giddey at his price point, everybody else is going to take a big step up. I'm not sure Zach LaVine does. So Zach LaVine, as of right now, as we're waiting for our update, my nuke of the night. How do you feel about him?
I love him. He's in my top lineup right now. So I love that call. And I will give you high praise. I've caught a couple of your recent calls, and that Dosunmu call was mint. The Anthony Black over Cole Anthony was elite. So wanted to give you your props.
My God, it's not every day that I get to be on a show with somebody who actually compliments me as opposed to tears me down and tries to make me feel like I'm less than. So I appreciate that.
I mean, that Black call was just DFS 101, and it was minted.
But yet 50% owned and then 10% owned. It was really, really fun. If you played, I looked at the high stakes stuff. I didn't play any of it that night. I just played like the main tournament and everything else. Had a pretty good night, but Anthony Black was like 6% to 65% Cole Anthony, which was really
Unfortunately, I played one lineup that night and did play Cole Anthony. I had a good night, but I will say that $100, I could not get to him. So I would have played Black if I could have.
All right. Well, let's continue on our merry way here. I'm going to refresh. I'm just kind of waiting for everything to get updated on the other side of things. We've got the 31-minute mark. Yeah, hit the like button for us if you could. We're going to start giving you some more of our tournament favorites. We have on the screen over on playback everything that was showing up in the Sims tool. A lot of Misic. Let's talk Washington here for a quick second, because one thing that's going to change is as we start to get things updated for Chicago, I think we're going to get some ownership trimmed on some players that otherwise wouldn't have. And I think Washington is an interesting talking point, because we have to start figuring out what we're okay locking in early before we get Miles Bridges news, before we get Jamal Murray news, before we get the starting lineup from the Bulls. And there's an opportunity cost, but Justin Champagnie is probably going to take a decrease in terms of ownership. And he is probably going to go way, 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 way up compared to where I was expecting. I thought he was going to end up being pretty chalky if people ended up getting ruled in. No, friends. Small forward, power forward, 4,500 on FanDuel. A little bit different where Justin Champagnie, not really somebody that you're looking at as much. You still get Carlton Carrington, 4,900 at point guard for FanDuel, but Washington, is there anything you don't want to live without? Let's just kind of assume that big lineup, we're expecting Jonas Valanciunas alongside Alexander Starr. Maybe we get something different. We throw Evan Mobley out there. I think that that's live to happen, but anything from Washington you can't live without early.
No, I think you said that very well. Like, Champagnie looks really good. He looked a lot better before just even this Dean Wade news. Like, they project similarly enough where at this point I almost would rather play Dean Wade in the better matchup. Like, even without Mobley, it's still a much better matchup for Dean Wade. I think Champagnie has higher upside, no doubt about it. But, you know, again, price tag matters. I don't want to go out of my way to lock in the early guys. So I'm off Washington now. Like, I think they looked much better before we got some news, like Jalen Smith, Dean Wade. I just don't think they're needed.
Got a couple of great super chats that just rolled in. Lonzo Ball listed available to play Friday. That's going to hurt a little bit of what you're looking at with Giddey. Going to hurt a little bit of what you're looking at with some of these other pieces. Oh, baby. It's almost like I had a feeling Jonas Valanciunas just wasn't going to start now that you didn't get news with Evan Mobley out there. Your Washington starting lineup, Jordan Poole, Carrington, Coulibaly, Champagnie, and Sarr. Yeah, that's going to change some stuff for me because I don't know. I didn't have Coulibaly starting. Did you?
No. Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't know. I mean, J-Val, I think it just makes Washington look worse. So, because J-Val was probably the most enticing piece from them, and he's still only center eligible. Yeah, I could do without any Washington here.
Yeah, it was going to be Champagnie or Coulibaly, I thought, and now they're both starting there. You could do without any Washington. Let's take a look at Coulibaly because this is a guy that I hadn't thought about a ton. I was planning on playing. I mean, 5,200 for Coulibaly is a pretty inflated number for sure, but like he doesn't do anything defensively. He's just basically just out there to accumulate stats. Like Bilal Coulibaly, decent rebounder, okay assist rate, gets some steals from time to time. He averages 1.5 of those per game. He's averaging 34 minutes a game. But yeah, Champagnie starting is a big deal for sure too. Making sure that you get that locked in.
And one thing I'll say is like Sarr starting at center. This is a mint Jared Allen spot. Like now his rebound props just, I mean, he is going to dominate the boards here. I like him even more now.
Very glad I withdrew all my entries for this slate. Yeah, you know, sometimes I feel that way. I don't feel that way right now. If Jalen Smith doesn't start, I'll feel that way. I'm pretty sure. Or I'll just pivot to Sonogo 100% and not live to tell the tale more than likely. That'll be fun. Real fun slate. Miles Bridges questionable, Jamal Murray questionable. Those are the only two we're waiting on. Now let's get to some super chats here. Oh, God. Yabusele starting? What the flying F? I didn't think he was going to start. I thought KJ Martin was going to start.
Do we care that much with Embiid in?
No, we really don't, but I have unders on Yabusele, so there's that.
Okay, so
Jansen White, $4.99. Would it be possible to have the $4.20 max on DK added into the late swap live pools? I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great ad. Obviously, we get the $1 that is thrown in there. We will throw something in to get that $4 added. I will put something, I will make a tag and a note for the dev team for sure. Thank you so much for that super chat. And obviously, yeah, the $4 is going to be softer than like your main iteration for sure. Pierre, $2. Is Nurkic a good pivot off popular J. Smith on FanDuel? No. Nothing is a good pivot off of Smith, assuming he starts. Do you have any Nurkic love on FanDuel?
No, I could not see playing Nurkic on this slate. Like, no.
Nurkic is 4,800.
It's cheap, but like...
Yeah, I like Jalen Smith a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, that is really cheap for Nurk, but I couldn't do it.
You're getting everybody back at the same time for Phoenix. That's the other problem. Like Ryan Dunn. He's a terrible fantasy producer. So that's just like, for him being out, it means absolutely nothing for me. It's pretty much a negative for everybody, Ghost Rider. So it's weird. Oh, Ryan Dunn's off the injury report too. So I just looked at that. I'm not playing the FanDuel slate. Could you tell? But yeah, I very much think Yusuf Nurkic at 4,800 probably underowned, but Walker Kessler on the other side of it, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, all back firing it up for, the 2 games before somebody inevitably gets hurt. So have fun with that. Bang Bronley. I hopefully didn't say anything bad. $4.99. D-Lo on FanDuel, even though Minnesota has good D, no Diddy. Okay. Yeah, I don't really care. Like, the Lakers on FanDuel, Austin Reeves is back. I don't know if D'Lo ends up starting tonight. Do you?
No, I don't. And I don't love D'Lo here. Just not a great matchup. And Reeves back hurts him. So I don't think he starts with Reeves back. So that's my opinion. But it does bring me to a question on the other side of this game. A guy that's getting love. He's another guy like Champagne whose ownership will drop. Dante DiVincenzo. Thoughts on him at 3,900?
No.
I generally feel the same.
Until it's really hard to click that button right now. Really hard to click that button.
Especially with like guys like Wade now available, Jalen Smith. You just don't need it.
Yep, don't need it. Don't think I'm going to force it. Pete Shepard, $2. S tier calls. And gosh darn it, people like you, Eric. Gee, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would also appreciate producer Jacob. Are you on hand, my friend? Are you on hand? Negative Ghost Rider? Maybe. He said he had to take a call really, really quick. So I just wanted to check in because, well, if you like me so much, and, well, I like The Sims very much, and you guys need to be checking out The Sims here right now, our DFS Sims tool. And there's an easy way to do that. There's 11 sites that you can sign up for. You're going to have Pick'em on the left side of your screen. You're going to have Sportsbooks on the right side of your screen. You're going to have lots of opportunities whenever this graphic gets put up on the screen. Hopefully in 3, 2, 1. Nope, that would have been cool if it worked, but it didn't. Producer Jacob's not on hand here. I'll talk about that here in a second. Let's update this one more time, and we'll get the Sims on on screen here for the people as well. Love Dante tonight. I surely don't. I wish I loved Dante right now. He's not making a name for himself in Minnesota the same way that he made a name for himself elsewhere in New York City. He's a I don't know. It's been disappointing so far. And Rob Dillingham off the injury report, so he'll play like 6 minutes. That's cool. Whatever. Let's continue on our merry way. Let's start breaking things down a little bit further. I'm refreshing the Sims. I'm getting my stuff in here as we speak. Anything that you're seeing in your lineups that's changed drastically here as we've gotten news? Because I can tell you one thing. I have 100% of Jalen Smith, and I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm with you. Totally with you. Jalen Smith is one of the better plays we'll see all year. I mean, it's a great matchup. He's a good points per minute, great points per minute guy. Presuming he's starting, I mean, I don't see any reason not to just play him everywhere. I really don't.
Knicks fleeced the Wolves for Cat. Yeah, no, I'm starting to feel that.
I don't know about that. It wasn't a deal just for straight up talent. Like the Wolves knew that they were going to need to do something. Like the NBA is different now. You can't, once you're like over the tax and stuff, you just can't make moves. So buying yourself more time is worth a lot of money. You're going to see more deals in the future where teams are literally dealing just for more time, more cap space, like literally more time because of how the new rules are structured. So I don't think you can judge that deal yet. Yeah, Randall's not as good of a fit, but I don't really think they have any intention of keeping Randall.
I hope not. I'm not having fun. He's a
I mean,
guy.
That's what sucks about it because you guys were so good last year and made that unexpected run.
Yep. Unexpected to some people. I don't know. It looked pretty good the whole time. And then, we needed to reverse engineer the Rudy Gobert deal. But anywho, we got producer Jacob on hand. And as such, I want to give you guys the Sims tool. I want to get you the Sims tool for free in the NBA or the NFL for 1 month. If you sign up with one of our 11 partner sites, we're going to have Pick'em on the left side of the screen. We're going to have Sportsbooks on the right side of the screen. We have Rebet. That is a sweepstakes sportsbook available in 46 of the 50 United States of America. You sign up with any of those, you get yourself the Sims tool 1 month for free. Now, there's a little bit of a deal you have to do. It takes a second or two. It takes about 2 minutes total. But you have to sign up, and you have to follow these steps. Screenshots of your welcome email, first settled bet, and you email that to sport@stokastic.com with screenshots and tell us which league you'd like. Do you want to have the NFL Sims? Do you want to have the NBA Sims? Whatever it is, you can get access to it, signing up and fire it all up. So check it all out, friends. That is the DFS Sims tool for free when you check out one of those 11 sites. Again, whether it's Bet365, Bet5, get 150, whether it's Bet5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits at DraftKings Pick 6. Would love to see you guys having access to it so you can join the Stokastic Hall of Fame and fire up that Sims tool and then get another month for free once you finish in the top 3 of any contest, 5,000 or more people. It's only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Eric, gut feeling on Murray, out or in? I have absolutely no idea right now. I think it's about as 50-50 as it comes down to. No pull whatsoever. I mean, they basically had the out tag next to him and then said, no, wait. He might play. I have no idea what to make of that.
He ain't playing.
Yeah.
He ain't playing.
So we got all those super chats knocked out. We've got 2 more actually coming up here. We got Perplupus. That's a cool name. $2. Are you guys thinking of skipping the first games? No.
Not entirely, but I don't think it's like a bad idea. I don't think you have to play anyone from the first couple games. I really don't. I don't think you have to skip them. I mentioned I like LeVert, Dean Wade, but I'm fine if I have lineups without any of those guys. So yeah, I think you could play it either way.
Goat Ed Paul Reed. Paul Reed didn't do like anything crazy. He was whatever. He was 3K. He had 4 points, 2 steals, a block, 3 assists. He only played 15 minutes, was kind of disappointing. Ronald Holland, if you had fallen into that one on accident, 26, 3-2, that would have been fun. But nothing really stood out there from the Detroit side of things. They were a complete failure yesterday. Quinn Lundeen, though, $1.99. Buzz Levine Smith, too many Bulls. No. I'm finding it interesting as I'm running the Sims here. What else are you getting to from Chicago? Because I think unless I'm really, really forcing it, which I'm doing with Zach LaVine to some extent, Bazelis not really showing up, even though he seems like a decent enough piece to take some shots on at 3,600, small forward, power forward. But Kobe White and Josh Giddey not really showing up whatsoever for me. It's basically just those 3, but I have no problem whatsoever. How about you?
I like Booz Ellis, but for me, it's Levine and Jalen Smith. Those are the 2 guys that are priorities. So after that, I think you can get to other guys, but those are 2 of the top plays on the slate for me, Levine and Smith.
Note for Jason, $19.99. Holy crap, that's a big one. That's like, that's like half of a video game back in the day. I remember the $39.99 days. $19.99. That's like going to Blockbuster and renting out 5 video games for the weekend, but have had times 3, 4-figure wins in the 20 max this season. Thanks for y'all's content and breakdowns. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you. Note for Jason. First off, fantastic. Second of all, that is not exactly that's a story we've heard a lot from a lot of different people, and I love to hear it every single time. So glad that it worked out and that you're smashing this NBA season. Sean, $4.99. Hey, gents, could y'all review the best value on DK per position? Thank you. We would absolutely be honored to. And I was stalling a little bit here and making sure that I answered questions very, very slowly and very in depth so I could get a new, fresh run of the Sims tool in action. See what I just did there, too? That's how we do it in the pros.
Yeah, love that. That was a nice transition.
Thank you so much. All right, let's go through position by position. Our favorite plays to be getting to at point guard. Misich right now, but that's probably going to change. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to say Westbrook because I don't think Murray plays.
Okay, so there you go. Those are the kind of leverage things we're looking for. Shooting guard, for me, Donovan Mitchell. How are you this fine day?
Yeah, I like Mitchell a lot, but I'm going to say Karis LeVert.
At small forward, Justin Champagnie. You should probably know that by now.
Zach LaVine.
Power forward is going to be Cam Johnson for me. What a time to be alive.
Oh, same with me. I hate to say this, especially after what I said earlier, but I don't love power forward, and he's just so cheap. Dean Wade.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, Cam Johnson's 7K, and I'm clicking on it. I have problems. And center, Jalen Smith. It is not remotely close. Give the people a tournament play because I've got one at center that I find to be pretty interesting. His name's Nikola Jokic. Ever heard of him?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be really popular too. I will say a lot of times we see like a bunch of centers up top in like boom bust stool. And today, 7 of the top 8 players are centers. That is crazy. Jalen Smith, Jokic, Embiid. Okay, Wemby, he doesn't count because he's on the late slate. Micic is in the middle. Anthony Davis, Jared Allen, Nick Claxton. That is a sight to be seen. So I think that all the centers besides Jokic and especially Jalen Smith are good tournament options. Anthony Davis right now not getting a ton of love. He stands out. And I like Jared Allen quite a bit too.
We got Sean Geezy, $5. Any thoughts on who will back up Jalen Smith, assuming that he starts? So yeah, I'm under the assumption that he starts for sure. And I'm pretty positive that terrible fantasy producer Adama Sanogo, who is active, I just found it over on Twitter from a reliable source. It looks as though he is going to be playing basketball tonight. So he ended up making his way to the arena. He's ready to rock. He's ready to roll. I don't know how much we want him to roll because if he has a good game, I will probably still have zero. I think Sanogo backs him up. How about you?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it was one of those like random pieces where like they have EJ Liddell, whatever that is. He's hanging out there in a Bulls uniform.
Hey, he's an Ohio State Buckeye, so
I know he is. I just thought I'd throw that in there for you. I knew these things. He's a nice man. He loves the game of basketball.
There we go.
Fun. Yeah, it's always fun to throw that one in there from time to time. No other super chats. Buzelis has to get run 3,500 on power forward. Buzelis, again, this is a guy that I thought I would be getting to a little bit more than what I was. Giving him a little bit of a boost. We do have him under-owned. He's 3,600 on DraftKings for what it's worth. Is Buzelis 3,500? Nope, he's 4,200. So yeah, you just typed the number in there wrong. Just double checking. 3,600 Buzelis. Somebody I'll probably get to a little bit of and then swap things around as the evening goes on. But yeah, Jalen Smith's still the priority for me. Just lock button central.
Yeah, 100% with you there.
All right. Let's talk about some of the expensive guys on this slate because that's something we haven't done here yet. We've got Jokic. We've got Embiid. They're both at the center position. You can only play one alongside Smith, but I think FanDuel, it's terrifying. What a terrifying slate to be playing on FanDuel where you have to choose between Jalen Smith, Nikola Jokic, Nick Claxton is playing, or he was playing some ownership earlier, not really anymore. And then you have the upside that always exists with Jokic. I mean, what a terrifying slate if Jalen Smith doesn't have like an at least decent game over there at 4,100. But on DraftKings, we're looking for some pairings for our $3,500 Jalen Smith now. And I think a lot of the board got a lot more realized. I like Anthony Davis for tournaments, although the ownership has him a little bit over-owned now. I like James Harden for tournaments. He's a little bit under-owned right now. And Joel Embiid, 9,500. His PRA opened at 41.5. It's now moved up to 44.5. There's a lot of confidence that Joel Embiid's going to be a full go every single one of these times that he randomly pops up in games. I'm not sold on it, but he is 9,500, which historically is a super low tag on him. Amongst these top-end options, who are you looking to roster in your high-stakes tournaments this evening?
Not Embiid. Like, I agree with you. I think there's just too much risk with how good center is. So Jalen Smith for sure. And then I really like Jokic a lot. And I like Jared Allen probably as my third favorite. Center is really, really deep tonight. There's a bunch of good plays. So certainly a two center type of night for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a two center type night for me too. Micic, if you run the Sims unencumbered, he shows up a massive amount. He's 5,100. That definitely makes some sense. But Jokic is the guy that I really like to get to. I've got him in north of 50% of my lineups right now. We've got him at 25% ownership, 26% ownership. I think that this is more than fine to embrace. I guess for me, there's just so much uncertainty with Joel Embiid every single time he takes a floor. And I mean, Maxey is going to still chop into the rates. Like the main thing is that you have Indy there. And if anything happens to Miles Turner, any minutes you have Obi Toppin or Pascal Siakam or God forbid James Johnson playing the 5, Joel Embiid should absolutely rip their souls apart. But at the same time, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, they have to cut into his rates more than you would think Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey did at times. And off the bench, you're getting an all usage guy in Jared McCain, who, you know, they're going to find ways to play 20-ish minutes every single time out still. Like, he's played too well to just be eliminated from the rotation or anything like that. That would be pretty extreme. Kyle Lowry is doubtful there now. He got downgraded. Don't think that does anything for my minutes projections, but Joel Embiid's really an uncomfortable click. I think because I'm playing MME, I'm fine playing him in like a quarter of my lineups and just moving on with my life. but I can't really in one lineup say he would be the guy I'd want to play over Jokic. Jokic is just, he has a 54.5 PRA today. What are we even doing, Matt? These are historic rates.
Yeah, I was listening to something earlier. I think it was Simmons talk about players who have averaged 50 PRAs like through a season. The list is small, and the highest is, it might be Wilt. Like, I think it's Wilt who averaged 56, and Jokic is like going to break that this year, which is insane.
Let's start talking about some of our other favorite tournament owns. So we talked about the expensive guys. Let's just kind of open up the board. Who are you finding mixing into your lineups? I've got one guy in particular that I want to bring up, but who are you mixing into lineups that just seems a little bit too low owned on this slate for you that you want to be playing in high stakes tonight?
I like Jarrett Allen a lot. I know he's getting some ownership, but 12%. This just isn't enough for me. I think he's in a smash spot against Washington here with no Mobley. I mean, with taking Mobley off the floor, I think just makes Allen look so much better, and he's priced for Mobley to be there. The matchup is elite. You know, you have to bypass one of Jokic or Jalen Smith to get there, and I hate that. But everyone's going to be looking at that. And so I think he comes in even lower owned in high stakes, and I think he's got 50-plus fantasy upside tonight.
How do you feel about the one, the only, Jared Butler in this game at 3,700?
You know, I'm fine with it. Like, you know, certainly if the game blows out, he's going to get extra run. He's in the rotation anyways with all those guys out, especially Brogdon. But, like, do I really want to take up a roster spot early on Jared Butler, who, like, you're hoping gets you 20-ish fantasy points? Like, no thanks.
Okay. It's basically, I'm kind of torn between what I want to do with him, Kevin Porter Jr., and then obviously Russell Westbrook. I mean, Russell Westbrook could end up being the best/worst play on this slate, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
You got to kind of make some way for him in lineups at 6K or whatever he is right now. I mean, Russell Westbrook's the other guy that I think we got to just find ways to. And even bringing that up makes me think Michael Porter Jr., it's not a good tag at 7,100, but like that's a decent number still for Denver here in this spot. Michael Porter Jr., I feel like is going to just have one of those games that it doesn't matter. It's an ugly game environment taking on the Clippers, but I'm trying to find some ways to not just be jamming Jokic and everything, but I have no problem playing Porter Jr., Russell Westbrook, or whomever with Jokic. It's just one of those slates where I'm trying to find ways to get different, and I think he's a little bit under-owned too.
You know, here's another way, and I agree with you. I've heard a lot of talk today about what Murray potentially sitting and how it's so easy. You just play Powell and flip from Powell to Westbrook if Murray's out. I like playing Powell with Westbrook, like right now, because a lot of people aren't going to do that because their pivot is Powell to Westbrook. And yeah, you're taking more inherent risk because that game is an island game at 9. But I think the upside is just too good to pass up here at what could be lower ownership. And again, I don't think Murray plays. I'm taking a gamble there. He was only able to partially practice on Wednesday. Hamstring injuries aren't usually injuries you want to mess around with. They have a couple days off after this game. Like, I don't think Murray plays. So I'm willing to take that stand. And if worse comes to worse, I'll have to get weird, you know, if the news comes out that Murray is in.
Yep, noticing Powell an easy pivot if Murray ends up in. I might end up with a lot of Norman Powell on this slate, and I don't plan on having a ton of Norman Powell here on this slate, but we shall find out. We got 7 minutes left. First off, hit the like button. Second off, get ready to rock over on Playback with Greg and Josh Engleman right after this program in 7 minutes. You're going to want to be over there checking the ins and outs. And obviously, as things come out, we're going to have an entire hour for them to be able to chat with you about starting lineups, about what they're doing with their lineups, about how guys are progressing. I think that's one of the most underutilized parts of Late Swap is reacting to how your lineups are doing or how some of the main chalk pieces or non-chalk pieces you had in your lineups are performing. Make sure that you're checking that out. That'll be a very, very important, informative hour to be doing all of your late swaps. Jeremy Doyle, $1.99. Johnny Davis on FanDuel for value. No. He's got 8.5 projection on FanDuel. That's going to be a no from me, dog. Salah Abdallah, $4.99, 2v2 on FanDuel in a GPP. Misic, Levine, or CP3 Michael Porter Jr. Oh, it's like somebody was reading my mind a little bit with Michael Porter Jr. Go off, King. But I still have to think Micic and Levine. I love the Levine side for tournaments, and Micic is on FanDuel not as popular, I believe. Yeah, 27% ownership. But point guard, shooting guard does some interesting things for your FanDuel lineups. I haven't ran anything since the Jalen Smith news came out, so letting you know that. But FanDuel looks pretty darn good for Micic Levine, if you ask me.
Easy Micic Levine for me.
All right. A lot of TJ McConnell love here, too. I don't know. TJ McConnell. This is not the TJ McConnell slate for me. I feel like I'm kind of wired into that guy. I have 4% of him. I guess he is 4% owned, so I'm at the field. I'm not going to be doing anything to change that in any way, shape, or form. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I like Norman Powell here, so that's why I think.
Oh, you do?
Okay. Everyone's talking about playing Westbrook, and then if Murray's in, pivoting to Powell, or playing Powell, pivoting to Westbrook. You know what I mean? I like playing both. I think that Powell is a good play. Certainly, if Murray's out, Westbrook is a better play than Powell. But that's why everyone will play Westbrook there, and Powell will be lower owned. I think Powell is a good play on his own right, and is almost a better play because if Murray's out, a lot of people are going to take their Powell ownership to Westbrook.
Gotcha. How much Dean Wade did you end up with? Did you play him in?
I'm playing 3 lineups today, and he's in 2 of my 3. Just
he's in 2 of the 3. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit nervous about this. I'm trying to trim him down a little bit. My last run of The Sims didn't have as much of him, and I'm just fine with that. Thank God. But let's cover this in the last 4 minutes, because I think this is going to be the best way we can do things. Let's talk about the must-have, can't miss up pieces from these first 2 games. For me, I think it is very clear-cut who I still want to get to. I want to get to a little bit of Jared Allen. I want to get to a lot of Karis LeVert. I want to get to a little bit of Darius Garland. I want to get to a little bit of Dean Wade. On the Washington side, Alex Sarr, very difficult for me to get away from in any way, shape, or form. Alex Sarr, I think, is probably the best Washington play as I'm looking through my lineups right now. You have Jonas Valanciunas coming off the bench. That is a huge upgrade to Sarr's rebounding possibilities here. And not having both bigs in Mobley and Allen out there probably helps it there as well. Joel Embiid on the Philly side of things, the only piece from that game that I think you absolutely cannot live without. Everybody else, kind of a tournament dart in my opinion. How about yourself, Matt? Let's round out the show. What can you not pass up from the first couple of games? Oh, Justin Champagnie, my highest owned play from the entire 2. So want to throw that in too.
There's no one I'll say that like you have to play. So the answer is no one. But I'm playing Jared Allen in 2 of my 3 lineups. I'm playing Karis LeVert in 2 of my 3. I'm playing Dean Wade. I'm playing Champagnie in 2 of my 3. So those are the guys that, for me personally, I guess prioritizing. It's more that they just fit at good price points besides Jared Allen and LeVert, who I actually really like. But I don't think there's anyone you have to play by any means.
If Russell Westbrook ends up being your starter instead of Jamal Murray, how much do you plan on having of him?
I already have him in all 3 because I think Murray sits.
Oh, boy. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him. I'm pretty excited. Any Rui Hachimura, somebody's a lot of Rui conversation.
No, not for me.
Okay. I'm uploading my lineups here now. Miles Bridges available to play. That kind of shores that up. Solon available to play. Ooh, does that do anything to your Micic? How much Micic do you have in your 3 lineups?
All 3. So I don't love it, but he's just showing up so much in the Sims. He's such an easy play at 5,100. I think there's bust potential. I actually was on KJ Simpson the one day that Simpson played well and Micic didn't. So, like, I think one every, 4 or 5 games with LaMelo out, Micic will have one of those games, but I still think he's too cheap for his current role. Bridges being in doesn't make me like him anymore. But what I will say is Bridges is a good player. And so Charlotte's offense just might look better here. So I don't think it does I don't think it makes him like out of play or anything. I think it slightly worsens him, but I still like him quite a bit at 5,100.
Appreciate everybody's super chats. We got inside of a minute. Charles Moran, $1.99, DKGPP, Westbrook Miller, or Russell Edwards. That'll round out our program.
D'Angelo Russell?
Yep. Oh shit! I have Melissa Harvey, $5 for contest archetype. You set $1.20 max at lowest stakes. Yes. For the $1.20 max, you would set it at the lowest stakes. In between is kind of where I'm looking at the $4 or the $5 when I play that, or the $8 when I play that, and then the marquee one that's usually going to be the $15 or whatever the main tournament of the evening is going to be.
Yes, I agree. Just to expand on that, if I'm playing like the $100 single entry, I'll go between marquee and high, or in between them. And if I'm going like the 555 or 888, I'll go all the way to high stakes. It's definitely the Westbrook side. Like, I like the Westbrook side, even if Murray's in.
All righty, everybody, we've made it to lock. Another week of, I guess weekday. We'll have Saturday NBA Live before lock coming your way. Greg will be on that tomorrow, I believe, with EMAC. So that is awesome. But I got to hang out with my friend Matt Bellman. Go follow him at Fantasy Tips Matt over on X while you're at it. We got Josh and Greg, though, going live over on Playback here right now. If you could, producer Jacob, throw that link into chat for the people so they can follow it up. Just spam it over and over again. Josh and Greg, if you're watching, spam it in the chat over on YouTube. But we're going to get ourselves the heck up out of here. Matt, any final words for the people?
No, man. It was a great show.
Great show per usual. Hopefully we get some of that news to break our way. Be on high alert for Chicago Bulls. Obviously, the most important piece of the slate, the highest owned piece of the slate. Get confirmation that he's in the starting lineup, but do that over on Playback with Josh and Greg right now. Thank you, producer Jacob. I'm Eric Lindquist. We'll see you guys next week.